Chapter 61. The Rise of the Great Qin Dynasty. Bring Chu Yuan back. Chu Zan could not help but shake his head. If Chu Yuan really came back, it was unlikely that things would end well for him. It would be strange if Chu Tianming did not curse him to death instead. Qin Qian naturally did not dare to make things difficult for him, but the Chu family's situation was naturally quite awkward because of this. He sent an order to Wan Chong and instructed him to reject this commission. You won't accept it? Chu Tianming was stunned. This was the first time he had encountered a situation where the Black Moon Tower did not accept a commission. Why not? It shouldn't be too difficult for you to capture someone. Your Black Moon Tower won't even accept such a simple mission. Wan Chong said indifferently, Brother Chu, we can accept it. It's just that your Chu family can't afford it. I'm doing this for your own good. My Chu family can't afford it. Chu Tianming laughed angrily. It's just a request to capture a person, and the target is a direct descendant of my Chu family. No matter how strong he may have become, there's no way he's surpassed the Void Realm. Why can't my Chu family afford it? The first thing that came to mind was that the Chu family was being ostracized, and that even the Black Moon Tower did not value the Chu family and treated them lightly. Chu Yuan's talent was indeed outstanding, but how long had it been? At best, he had broken through to the Void Realm. How could the Chu family not be able to afford to commission a simple request like this? Wan Chong sighed and said, if you insist on going forward with it, we can accept it. The price is an Emperor-level weapon. What? Emperor-level weapon? Chu Tianming's eyes widened. Was it because the Black Moon Tower was too black-hearted, or was it because Wan Chong himself was too black-hearted? In the entire southern region, there were only a few forces that might have Emperor-level weapons, but the Chu family was definitely not one of them. On the other hand, the head of the Qin family, Qin Qian, controlled an Emperor-level weapon. He did not know where it came from. Perhaps it was the inheritance of the Qin family. However, that still did not alter the fact that the Chu family did not have one. Even if the Chu family had an Emperor weapon, they would never take it out and use it to pay the Black Moon Tower to capture someone. See, I already said that your Chu family couldn't afford it. Wan Chong sighed, looking at Chu Tianming, whose face was alternating between green and white and was about to explode in anger. He said, Brother Chu, it's not that I want to embarrass you. It's just that the place where your grandson is right now is a little special. How special? Chu Tianming did not believe that there was anything that special which would require an Emperor weapon to capture someone. There is no key to this ancient mystic realm. No one can enter unless they are at the peak of the Truth Realm and are protected by an Emperor-level weapon. Wan Chong said calmly, if we're asked to capture someone in such a special place, wouldn't the price of an Emperor-level weapon be appropriate? Forget it. Chu Tianming sighed, and his face was dejected. It seemed that ever since his third son, Chu Chuluo, broke off his marriage engagement and went missing, the Chu family's situation had been getting worse and worse. Is there any news about Chuluo? Wan Chong shook his head. The Black Moon Tower also has no news about third young master. Chu Tianming became momentarily silent, after which he sighed and left. Wan Chong did not lie to Chu Tianming. Chu Yuan was indeed hiding in an ancient mystic realm. Chu Zan looked at the report and frowned. Was Chu Yuan hiding from other enemies, or was he hiding from the Chu family and Qin Qian? Since Chu Yuan was hiding and was in no danger of being caught, Chu Zan could not be bothered to pay attention to him. On the other hand, Chu Yun had already traveled to the territory of the Nine Swords Mountain. The Nine Swords Mountain was a huge faction in the southern region which was no weaker than the Great Qian dynasty. It was one of the three sects of the southern region. The two empires referred to the Great Qian dynasty and the evil imperial court. In fact, the evil imperial court was different from a normal empire, though it was still considered one. It was an empire of heretic cultivators. The three sects were the Nine Swords Mountain, the number one sect in the southern region, the Heavenly Cauldron Mountain and the Floating Flower Pavilion. The three sects and two empires represented the top forces in the southern region. Chu Zan was not worried about Chu Yun's safety. She was being secretly protected by a Truth Realm expert, as well as a wisp of his own Emperor-level power. After refining pills, Chu Yun's cultivation speed became extremely fast. She was already at the third level of the spirit realm. She could already refine the Void Unity pill. Her talent in refining pills was unexpectedly outstanding. Sir, Qin Qian has annexed the Great Zhou Kingdom. Su Shaner sorted out the information sent over by the Black Moon Tower and picked out the ones that Chu Zan would be interested in. Chu Zan raised his eyebrows. Qin Qian's actions were very quick and decisive. She had already annexed the Great Zhou Kingdom. Next would be the Purple Moon Kingdom. The forces in the southern region were about to undergo a major reshuffling. In the end, the situation might change to one where there were 3 empires and 3 sects in the future. The other weak sects and forces were not worth mentioning. The Qin royal family's foundation was too weak, and there were too few experts. Up until now, apart from Qin Qian, there wasn't even a single Truth Realm expert. The strongest expert that returned from the Great Qian dynasty was only at the 9th level of the Unity Realm. Perhaps this was due to the Great Qian dynasty deliberately suppressing their subordinate kingdoms, to the point that there were no Truth Realm experts. If the Great Qin dynasty relied on just Qin Qian alone, she might not be able to defend such a huge territory. Perhaps Qin Qian would try to rope in some Truth Realm experts. Over the course of the next month, other than the Chu family being in an increasingly awkward situation and feeling gloomy about it, the Great Qin dynasty was expanding rapidly. The Purple Moon Kingdom had surrendered. The Great Yan Kingdom had surrendered. In addition, during this month, 3 Truth Realm experts had appeared in the Qin royal family. Just yesterday, a Truth Realm expert had appeared in the He family as well as another in the Zhao family. It was not possible for them to raise their cultivations to the Truth Realm so quickly. It was not something that could be achieved by simply cultivating arduously. They had to have used some other method. For example, instilling. They would instill the enlightenment and power of the Truth Realm directly, and raise their cultivation to the Truth Realm, after which they would slowly allow them to consolidate their foundations. Although cultivators who had their strength raised this way would be slightly weaker, they would still be bona fide Truth Realm cultivators. It would not be a problem for them to crush those in the Unity Realm. Chu Tianming's roar could be heard from the ancestral mansion every now and then. Chu Zan was worried that this cheap grandpa would be so angry that his blood vessels would explode and cause him to die. Chu Zan was not surprised to see the Qin family cultivate a Truth Realm expert so quickly. After all, for 9th level Unity Realm cultivators, as long as they had enough pills to break through the bottleneck, they would be able to do so within a short period of time. Since Qin Qian had appeared, the Qin family's foundation would naturally be fully unearthed and utilized. However, Chu Zan was surprised to find that the He and Zhao families also had Truth Realm experts. In ancient times, the ancestors of the Chu, Zhao, and He families were the trusted aides of the great Qin emperor, and they were all quite powerful. Perhaps all 3 families had some of their resources passed down. Had Qin Qian helped the Zhao and He families unearth their resources? The strength of the 3 great families had almost been equal not too long ago, but now the Chu family was being left behind. The expressions of everyone in the Chu family were ugly. Chu Tianming's face was dark all day long. Many people were blaming Chu Yuan. Chu Yuan's father, Chu Chofeng, had already gone to hide somewhere in Chu County. He did not dare to stay in the ancestral residence. Chu Tianming had already beaten him up a few times, so Chu Chofeng had become afraid. He felt wronged in his heart. His son had followed his 3rd brother since he was young, and all of his abilities had been taught to his son by his 3rd brother. How could Chu Tianming blame him for this? He had no idea that his son would learn from his 3rd brother and ruin his marriage engagement. The Great Qin dynasty had annexed many countries, and the Great Qian dynasty had taken action as well, asking all of the countries to submit. Soon, only an ungoverned region was left behind, which became the buffer zone between the Great Qin dynasty and the Great Qian dynasty. All of the other countries were annexed. The southern region's factions had been reshuffled. The Great Qin dynasty had risen too quickly and lacked resources. After annexing such a large territory, it would be impossible for Qin Qian to defend it all by herself. Whether it was the Great Qian dynasty or the evil imperial court, they all made some moves. The heretic cultivators at the borders of the Great Qin dynasty became more and more active. Chapter 62, Situation. The territories that the Great Qin dynasty annexed intersected with the borders of the other major forces, resulting in unrest and conflict. Heretic cultivators and itinerant cultivators frequently caused trouble in those areas. Many of the experts that the Great Qin dynasty had sent to guard the borders were killed. The Chu family secretly rejoiced that Chu County was currently within the core of the Great Qin dynasty and not near the border. If not, it would be dangerous. However, seeing the Zhao and He families rise up together with the Qin royal family made the Chu family feel even aggrieved. The Chu family had been willing to send experts to guard the border, but Qin Qian had declined their offer. There was no way she would dare to allow the Chu family to take such risks. The Great Qin Empress seemed quite angry with them. This was a slap on the face to the Chu family. The turmoil at the border did not last long. Soon enough, a truth realm expert appeared to guard the border of the Great Qin dynasty, killing off many troublemakers. Nine Swords Mountain had actually stepped in to help. The expressions of those in charge of the Great Qian dynasty and the evil imperial court turned ugly. The Great Qin dynasty had risen too quickly. Qin Qian, the empress, was even more powerful than their most powerful experts. She had almost reached the emperor realm. Were it not for the Great Qian dynasty and the evil imperial court's deep foundations, their territories would have been swallowed up by her as well. How did she get the support of Nine Swords Mountain? Or was she cooperating with Nine Swords Mountain? Chu Zan looked at the information in front of him. It was within his expectations that Nine Swords Mountain would make a move. After all, Qin Qian's father, the one who married into the Qin royal family, was the great elder of Nine Swords Mountain. Hong Fei. He was a top-notch genius of Nine Swords Mountain 100 years ago. His current strength had already reached the peak of the Truth Realm. When he married into the Qin royal family, he had already been a Truth Realm expert. Interesting. Hong Fei was old enough to be Qin Pingsha's father, but he had actually married into the Qin royal family. What was even more surprising was that no one in the Qin family knew that Qin Pingsha's husband was actually the great elder of Nine Swords Mountain. Since Qin Qian had been born from their union, it was not hard to figure out that Hong Fei's marriage had been actually arranged by Qin Qian. Qin Qian's fox demon soul had been sleeping in the Qin family's ancestral land this entire time. It was likely that Qin Pingsha had received instructions from Qin Qian while cultivating in the Qin family's ancestral land. Was Nine Swords Mountain the Great Qin Emperor's trump card? Or was it just a faction that supported the Great Qin Emperor? Nine Swords Mountain had been in existence for a very long time, even longer than the Great Qian dynasty. Its existence even predated the war with the demons. Things are getting more and more interesting. Chu Zan examined the information inside. The southern region's waters truly ran deep. He decided that once his strength increased, he would have Du Yuan come to the southern region to stir things up. After Ren Chang escaped, he would also ask this unnamed disciple of his to come to the southern region as well. The latter was already at the peak of the heaven realm and was cultivating the yin-yang combination divine seal. Once he mastered it and comprehended the cycle of life and death, his strength would definitely increase by a step. No matter what chess game was being set up in the southern region, he would FC King destroy it. He would destroy it without leaving seclusion too. This kind of feeling made him feel too FC King cool. If he could flip the board on such an intricate scheme, the system's reward was likely to be generous. Thinking this, Chu Zan's heart was filled with joy. He would let them proceed with their plans and schemes. When the right opportunity presented itself, he would flip the board. His divine soul entered the space underneath the Chu family's ancestral residence. The last time, when he broke through to the Emperor realm, Chu Zan had not examined this place carefully. The Zhao and He family's strength had suddenly soared. It was obvious that they had activated some kind of inheritance. Since the Zhao and He families possessed such an inheritance, how could the Chu family be lacking something similar? The power of his divine soul entered the space, after which he saw balls of power floating in the space, as well as the treasured artifacts stored inside. There was an emperor-level weapon inside. Was this the inheritance left behind by the ancestors of the Chu family? The floating balls of power could be instilled into cultivators above the third level of the Unity realm. Within a very short period of time, they would gain enlightenment and step into the Truth realm. As expected, the reason why the Zhao and He families had so many Truth realm experts so quickly was because of their own ancestors' inheritances. According to the records, the Chu family's ancestral land was an ancient site. The Chu family had only risen up because they had excavated the ancient site. It was likely that someone had guided the Chu family's ancestors to this ancient site. Chu Zan hesitated for a moment. He did not choose to reveal the Chu family's inheritance. After Chu Yun returned, he would let her do the honors. He withdrew his divine soul power and ignored the inheritance. In the outside world, thanks to the intervention of the great elder of Nine Swords Mountain, the situation had become complicated again. After a short period of peace, another storm started brewing. The heretic cults started to take action again. Even if the Great Qin dynasty sent out a large number of experts, they were still unable to destroy the heretic cults. However, as the Great Qin dynasty continued to make use of its inheritance, they gained more and more experts. The overall situation gradually stabilized. Things were back to square one again. Whenever the heretic cults started to cause trouble, the various factions under the Great Qin dynasty would move to suppress them. Apart from the heretic cults, which were supported by the evil imperial court, the Great Qian dynasty also intervened by supporting some rebel factions, which constantly plagued and threatened the Great Qin dynasty. The Great Qin dynasty had risen up too quickly, so they could only temporarily stabilize the situation. These factions were not easy to remove or destroy. Inside the Great Qin dynasty's imperial palace. "Are you really not going to accept the Chu family?" Qin Pingshan asked with a complicated tone. Back then, when Chu Chuluo broke off the engagement, he had seen his sister Qin Pingsha's sad and angry expression. At that time, he had been so angry that he wanted to lock Chu Chuluo up in jail. A generation later, Qin Qian also had her marriage engagement with Chu Yuan broken off, which stirred up his memories from the past, enraging him. However, he was now ecstatic that the Chu family had broken off the marriage engagement with Qin Qian. If Qin Qian had married into the Chu family, would she still be considered a member of the Qin family? After all, they were old friends with the Chu family. The four families had always been supporting each other for generations, so it was impossible for them to not have any feelings for each other. Moreover, due to their marriage alliances, they were all related to each other. There's no need to pull the Chu family in. It's fine as long as we remain friends. Chu County belongs to the Chu family's territory. Treat it as an ancient family in the Great Qin dynasty. Qin Qian said calmly, "Don't disturb the Chu family." Qin Pingshan sighed in his heart. He did not know what Qin Qian's intentions were. If she wanted to exclude the Chu family, she might as well expel them. However, she had to maintain a family friend and not make the Chu family submit. It seemed like she was treating the Chu family well, but, in reality, she was distancing herself from the Chu family. He could not understand her actions. Was she still thinking about Chu Yuan? Was that why she was so distant? Qin Qian had already made her decision anyway. He could not change anything. Although Qin Qian was young, her strength was profound. She looked like an obedient girl, but hidden beneath that facade was a ruthless and merciless character. If he dared to disobey her, the outcome would not be pretty. There were already 2 elders of the Qin family who had been imprisoned by her. An elder of the He family who took advantage of his seniority had even been killed. No one dared to question the Empress's decisions or disobey her orders. The entirety of the Great Qin dynasty rested in her hands. Her Empress token was more intimidating than the Emperor token of the Great Qian dynasty, which resulted in her orders being carried out promptly and efficiently. The only person who could influence Qin Qian's decision was her mother, Qin Pingxia. Qin Pingxia had always doted on her daughter, and had never questioned her decisions, supporting her unconditionally. The Chu family could only do so much. Based on the current situation of the Chu family, it was likely that they would end up as a small family. Without unlocking their foundation and inheritance, there was no way they could develop quickly. As the other families strode ahead, in the end, the Chu family would be left behind. Qin Qian's gaze was calm. In her mind, the small courtyard and the beautiful, powerful, and mysterious man inside it appeared. The waters in the southern region truly ran deep. Chapter 63. The Savior of All Trash. The situation inside the Chu family's territory was somewhat awkward. For the time being, the Qin, Zhao and He families did not show any signs of becoming estranged from the Chu family. However, the other 3 families were already one step ahead of the Chu family. Naturally, they were too embarrassed to compare themselves to the other 3 families now. They could only continue to co-opt themselves inside Chu County and slowly develop. Occasionally, Chu Zan would hear Chu Tianming roar. Chu Zan could not be bothered with the matters of the Chu family. He did not need to rely on the Chu family anyway. Things would be fine as long as they did not come to disturb him. After experiencing a series of events, the people of the Chu family seemed to have completely forgotten about the existence of a useless direct descendant like him. The Zhao and He families, under the leadership of the Qin family, had all gone ahead of them and left them in the dust. This kind of disparity naturally felt very uncomfortable. The direct descendants of the Chu family were all pent up inside and wanted nothing more than to catch up with their peers. After all, the 4 families originally had similar levels of strength, with the Qin family being only slightly stronger. In the end, the Chu family was left staring at the backs of the other 3 families. It would be strange if they felt good about it. It was just like 4 good brothers. The other 3 had all made a fortune, but one was still poor. This was especially so for one of the brothers, who had led the other 2 brothers to make a fortune but had abandoned the last brother. It was impossible for that last brother to not feel any resentment. The situation in the Great Qin dynasty gradually stabilized. Qin Qian, the Great Qin Empress, had suppressed their entire territory, and had managed to keep their southern region counterparts in check. Most of the countries that were annexed had surrendered, and their leaders were now important officials of the Great Qin dynasty. No one dared to go against Qin Qian's imperial decrees. After a few instances of her severely punishing, and even killing, experts who acted behind their backs, everyone knew that this young empress was vicious and merciless. Chu Zan continued to stay in his small courtyard. Occasionally, he would seek out Du Yuan to chat as well as give Ren Cheng some pointers on the yin-yang combination divine seal. The myriad heavenly mirror would occasionally connect to other domains, allowing him to meet some cultivators. For example, Chu Zan would occasionally toss some benefits to a group of disciples from a certain sect who were cultivating. Every day at noon, Su Shaner would brief him with the information she received from the Black Moon Tower. As such, although he did not leave seclusion, Chu Zan had a clear grasp of the overall situation in the southern region. During this period, the sky-shaking golden rock had broken through to the Emperor realm, while the heavenly spirit cat was on the verge of breaking through. Su Shaner cultivated very diligently. Other than cleaning the courtyard at fixed intervals, organizing the information from the Black Moon Tower and briefing Chu Zan, she spent the rest of her time cultivating inside the universe space. After being forced to flee the central region, Su Shaner was filled with thoughts of revenge and anger. She deeply desired to go back and suppress the Su family once she became stronger. She wanted to kill all those who had looked down on her, despised her, and coveted her body. In her heart, she was somewhat envious of Qin Qian. Even though the Great Qin Empress had to acquiesce to Chu Zan and obey his instructions, she was still an imposing figure to the outside world. The 3-year mark was almost up. Chu Zan felt quite depressed. No one with great luck had appeared during this period. Could it be that there were so few people with great luck in this world? One evening, as Chu Zan was drinking tea, he was startled and his expression suddenly changed. Outside the Chu family's territory, he sensed a 16 or 17-year-old youth with a self-deprecating look on his face. The youth was holding a jar of wine in one hand and drinking as he walked toward the small courtyard. Trash. Right, I'm trash. I'm trash. The kind that can't even stand the smoke of a fire. The youth had a dispirited look on his face. He was clearly drunk as he muttered to himself and stumbled unsteadily forward. His clothes were dirty and tattered, and there was a sword hanging from his waist. He looked down and out. Right, I'm trash. I'm not worthy of you, the favored daughter of the heavens. I thought too highly of myself. I'm trash, a big piece of trash. The corners of Chu Zan's mouth twitched. FCK. Could it be that every person with great luck was a piece of trash in the early stages of their life? The young man's cultivation base was only at the first level of the profound realm. For him to be able to barge into the Chu family's territory and not be noticed by anyone on the way here was simply unbelievable. His luck was truly awesome. The door to the courtyard was pushed open. Ding Yu staggered in and leaned against the wall, gulping down a few mouthfuls of wine. Su Shaner woke up from her cultivation and stepped out of the universe space. She frowned and looked at Ding Yu. Where did this kid come from? Just as she was about to chase him away, Chu Zan waved his hand and asked her to stand aside. Ding Yu shook the wine jar. There was no more wine. He looked at Chu Zan who was seated there, and then saw the pretty and delicate Su Shaner, who dressed up as a servant. He was stunned. He staggered over. Big brother, do you have any wine here? Sell me some. He searched his body, but did not find any money, so he took off the longsword and placed it on the table. I'll use this sword to pay for the wine. I won't need it in the future anyway. Su Shaner frowned and said, Sir, this drunkard. It's all right. Go and cultivate. Chu Zan waved his hand and said. Su Shaner looked at Ding Yu in puzzlement. Sir had not expelled him. Was this guy very talented? Did Sir want to take him in? Curious, she stood to the side and watched instead of returning to the universe space to cultivate. This sword of yours is a mystic weapon. Wouldn't it be a loss to exchange it for wine? Chu Zan asked with a smile. Big brother, I'm a good-for-nothing piece of trash. A good sword is wasted on me. Ding Yu sat on the ground dejectedly. Do you know what it means to be a piece of trash? I'm a piece of trash. What use is a sword to me? I can definitely tell that you're a piece of trash. Chu Zan nodded and said, your whole body exudes the aura of a piece of trash. If you tell someone that you're not a good-for-nothing piece of trash, that person would not believe you. Ding Yu cried. Any random passerby could tell that he was a good-for-nothing piece of trash. He had been justifiably expelled, after all. Not only are you a piece of trash, you were also dumped by a woman, right? How did you know? Ding Yu said in shock. Not only do I know that you were dumped by a woman, I also know that the woman that dumped you was also your childhood sweetheart. And it doesn't stop there. Not only were you dumped by your childhood sweetheart, you were also expelled by the sect. Also, your childhood sweetheart's new boyfriend trampled all over you and asked you to take a good look at yourself. He asked you where you managed to find the courage to think that you were worthy of such a heaven-blessed girl. How tragic. Ding Yu was shocked. How do you know all this? Who are you? The seven-colored divine light bloomed all over Chuzan's body. He was bathed in divine light like an immortal deity. I am the guiding light of the lost souls, the savior of all the trash in the universe. Meeting me is the greatest opportunity of your life. Young man, kneel down. Kowtow and acknowledge me as your master. Ding Yu looked at Chuzan, who was bathed in divine light, completely stunned. The savior of trash. That's right, I'm the savior of trash. Chuzan's voice seemed to echo from beyond the boundless great Tao. Ding Yu's struggle was evident on his face. Was this true or false? Had he really encountered an opportunity? Could he really rise up? In the end, he gritted his teeth, and his gaze turned firm. Plop, he knelt down, he kowtowed and said, Ding Yu pays his respects to master. Very good. From today onward, you will be my disciple. The divine light on Chuzan's body faded as he looked at Ding Yu with great satisfaction. He had finally accepted a disciple. He was very optimistic about Ding Yu's talent. The youth was indeed worthy of being a person with great luck, perhaps even the luckiest person in the southern region. Chapter 64. Sage Master's Halo, Breaking Through to the Supreme Realm. Question mark. With the Heavenly Secrets Origin probing technique, Chuzan could clearly see Ding Yu's background and talent. Ding Yu, an abandoned disciple of Nine Swords Mountain. He possesses top-notch sword Dao talent, Heaven's Will Sword Pulse. As his sword pulse has yet to be activated, his meridians are blocked and his cultivation is extremely slow. He was treated as trash and abandoned by his childhood sweetheart. The Nine Swords Mountain was the #1 sword Dao sect in the southern region. It had a long history and was currently connected to the Great Qin dynasty through Grand Elder Hong Fei, who was Qin Qian's biological father. It was one of the 3 sects and 2 empires in the southern region. You didn't leave seclusion, and a fated person from the southern region took you as his master. You have taken in your first disciple, who possesses top-notch sword Dao talent. You have been rewarded with the heaven-reaching sword technique. His guess was actually correct. Ding Yu was a fated person from the southern region. The fate of Nine Swords Mountain was not strong enough to hold on to this fated person. Ding Yu's rise was now inevitable. Master, can you really make me strong? Ding Yu knelt on the ground with a look of anticipation. Don't doubt me, Chuzan said in a dignified manner, I am the savior of all trash. Those are not empty words. Whether you are a piece of trash, or even a piece of sh*t, I can turn you into gold. Ding Yu's mouth twitched. If he really was a piece of sh*t, he might as well kill himself. Su Shaner looked at Ding Yu in shock. She did not find anything special about him at all. Moreover, his meridians seemed to be somewhat blocked. They were narrower than the meridians of an ordinary cultivator. Although he was at the first level of the profound realm, he was probably scraping the bottom of the barrel there. He was a bona fide good-for-nothing piece of trash. Why did Sir take him in as a disciple? Could it be that he possessed some shocking talent that she could not see? You possess the top-notch sword Dao talent, Heaven's Will Sword Pulse, but your sword pulse is unique. Your meridians are blocked, so it's difficult for you to cultivate. Today, I'll activate your sword pulse. As Chuzan spoke, he raised his hand and pointed a finger at Ding Yu's glabella. Boom! Ding Yu felt a vast power surging into his body. Crack! It was as if something had been mysteriously connected. He was suddenly and inexplicably enlightened. Boom! His cultivation, which was originally at the first level of the profound realm, began to soar. 3rd level of the profound stage, 5th level of the profound stage. Ding Yu closed his eyes and subconsciously sat cross-legged on the ground. The spiritual power in his body surged forth, and waves of powerful energy flowed through his body. His meridians were no longer narrow and small, but instead wide and sturdy. His comprehension of Sword Dao suddenly soared at this moment. Many things that he had failed to comprehend about the Sword Dao in the past suddenly became clear. He even gained a new understanding of the simplest sword techniques, which allowed him to comprehend entirely new sword moves. Su Shan'er had a shocked expression on her face. Ding Yu's strength was increasing very quickly. Within a short period of time, it had already risen to the 7th level of the profound realm. The aura on his body became increasingly sharp. She did not know if what she was seeing was an illusion or not, but Ding Yu's cross-legged figure on the ground seemed to resemble a sword that had been stabbed into the ground. If Ding Yu's strength earlier was considered at the bottom of the profound realm, his current strength could be said to be at the peak of the profound realm. This had all happened too quickly, and the magnitude of his cultivation improvement was massive. Chu Zan waved his hand and moved Ding Yu into the universe space. You should cultivate here and comprehend the sword Tao properly. His voice directly entered Ding Yu's consciousness. Yes, thank you, Master. Boom. Ding Yu's aura skyrocketed, directly breaking through from the 9th level of the profound realm to the 1st level of the spirit realm. Su Shan'er opened her mouth in shock. Was this all due to Ding Yu's shocking level of talent, or Chu Zan's heaven-defying methods? How much time had passed? Ding Yu actually broke through from the 1st level of the profound realm to the 1st level of the spirit realm. The combination of Ding Yu's astonishing talent and Chu Zan's heaven-defying methods had caused his cultivation to soar. After breaking through to the 1st level of the spirit realm, Ding Yu's cultivation began to stabilize, and he did not make any further breakthroughs. Your disciple Ding Yu's cultivation soared rapidly under your guidance, breaking through to the spirit realm. You have been rewarded with the Sage Master Halo and 100 years worth of cultivation. The system's notification rang out, which gave Chu Zan a pleasant surprise. Ding Yu was indeed worthy of being a person with great luck. His breakthrough to the next realm had brought Chu Zan a reward of 100 years worth of cultivation. Chu Zan was now at the 9th level of the Emperor realm, and was only one step away from breaking through to the Supreme realm. This cultivation boost reward would be enough for him to break through to the Supreme realm. He originally thought that he would need 10 years to break through to the Supreme realm, instead of the almost 3 years it took him now. Chu Zan then set a new small goal of breaking through to the Heaven realm within 10 years. He did not immediately receive the cultivation boost reward. Instead, he examined the heaven-reaching sword technique he had received after taking Ding Yu as a disciple. This was a supreme sword technique. Moreover, it was very compatible with Ding Yu's Heaven's Will Sword Pulse. He then turned his attention to the Sage Master Halo. The Sage Master Halo can help people comprehend the Tao. It can raise one's aptitude. The Sage Master's Halo was pretty awesome. When imparting cultivation techniques or preaching the Tao, the user of the Sage Master's Halo could help people quickly comprehend the profundity of cultivation techniques being taught. It could also help people comprehend the Tao. Furthermore, under the guise of a teacher imparting cultivation to a student, one's aptitude could be raised. With the Sage Master's Halo, Chu Zan had truly become the savior of trash. He was no longer fooling people. He could turn a good-for-nothing piece of trash into a genius. The system's reward was indeed awesome. Chu Zan waved his hand to indicate to Su Shan'er that she should cultivate. It was only after she entered the universe space that he chose to accept the 100-year cultivation boost reward. Boom. Cultivation and comprehension were instilled into him. Chu Zan looked calm but, in reality, his cultivation had already broken through. After surpassing the Emperor realm, he would be at the Supreme realm. Supreme realm cultivators were also known as the Supreme Emperors. In the cultivation world, there was a saying regarding the Supreme realm that read, "I am supreme within my domain, and even emperors have to bow their heads." The Supreme realm further sublimated the divine soul and transformed the power of the domain. The domain of an Emperor realm cultivator was like an insurmountable barrier to cultivators below the Emperor realm. They had no power to resist the domain and would be trampled and slaughtered by the Emperor realm cultivator. Inside the domain of an Emperor realm cultivator, no matter how many Truth realm cultivators, all were powerless. Facing an Emperor realm cultivator, that tiny bit of strength was no different from an ant. An Emperor realm cultivator's domain could easily suppress the cultivation of those below their realm of cultivation, making them look like people who lack the strength to even truss a chicken. As for Supreme realm cultivators, the power of their domains was even more exaggerated. Supreme realm cultivators had the ability to start enacting laws within their domains. Their domains were like real miniature worlds, with the embryonic form of laws, and could connect the laws of heaven and earth into the domain, strengthening the laws that had been enacted within. The hallmark of the Supreme Realm was the ability to connect the laws of heaven and earth into the domain, evolving the laws within. Because of this, the power of the domains of Supreme Realm cultivators could suppress the domains of Emperor Realm cultivators. Even Emperor Realm cultivators were powerless against it. The Supreme Emperor. In the cultivation world, Supreme Realm cultivators were usually called Supreme Emperors. This was the reason why. The power of Chuzan's divine soul continued to condense and the end spread out. The power of his domain also expanded in tandem with his divine soul. The domain encompassed a radius of 50 li, far surpassing the borders of the Chu family's territory. The experts of the Chu family were unaware of the fact that they were in a domain. The laws within the domain started to evolve, and Chuzan entered a state of profound comprehension of the laws. However, he did not communicate with the laws of heaven and earth in the southern region. The laws of heaven and earth in the southern region were incomplete. Logically speaking, it was impossible to break through to the Emperor Realm, let alone the Supreme Realm, in this region. Chuzan was different. He directly bypassed the laws of heaven and earth in the southern region and directly communicated with the laws of the Great Tao. It was precisely because of this that his domain was much stronger than other cultivators of the same realm. It was not an exaggeration to say that, when Chuzan was at the 9th level of the Emperor Realm, the strength of his domain was not inferior to a first-level Supreme Realm cultivator. In that sense, it was not that difficult for Chuzan to cross realms to battle an early-stage Supreme Realm cultivator. With the techniques and treasures at his disposal, even a second-level Supreme Realm martial artist would find it difficult to fight against him. After cultivating the 100 Tempering Divine technique, his soul was no weaker than a second-level Supreme Realm martial artist, even as a 9th-level Emperor Realm cultivator. Chuzan could communicate with the laws of the Great Tao and create his own laws within his domain. Supreme Realm. It was finally here. Chapter 65. Heaven-Shaking Divine Image. To Chuzan, breaking through to the Supreme Realm was a natural process which did not take long. However, for others, breaking through was not something that could be accomplished within a day or two. This was especially so for large realm breakthroughs that involved communicating with the laws of heaven and earth. Those who broke through after a few months of seclusion were all top-notch geniuses. It could be said that these geniuses would have no problem breaking through to the heaven realm at all. They were all people with excellent comprehension ability and outstanding talent. It was normal for most people who entered seclusion to take a few years or even a few hundred years to break through. Yet Chuzan did not even take a full day to complete his breakthrough. If news of this spread out, it would make a large number of Supreme Realm cultivators curse the heavens for being unfair and hug each other while shedding tears. After breaking through to the first level of the Supreme Realm, Chuzan's confidence greatly increased. At this moment, he could guarantee that he was invincible in the southern region. Even if Du Yuan ran over to the South Province now, he could easily suppress the latter. Given his current strength, although he could not say that he was invincible within the Supreme Realm, he still had no problems dealing with 5th or 6th level Supreme Realm cultivators. Chuzan's foundation was rich and deep to begin with, and the cultivation techniques he cultivated were even more advanced. There were countless secret techniques. In addition to that, his divine soul was even stronger than ordinary cultivators of the same level. His domain power was not connected to the laws of heaven and earth, but the laws of the Great Tao. His domain was even stronger than the domains of ordinary Supreme Realm cultivators due to this, and the laws it contained were even stronger. You are a homebody who has broken through to the Supreme Realm. Your strength has increased by a large realm, and you've been rewarded with the heaven-shaking divine image. The system's reward soon arrived. It was a divine ability. Chuzan looked at the description of the heaven-shaking divine image. The heaven-shaking divine images can shake the heavens, shake the Great Tao, suppress domains and break techniques. After examining the introduction of the heaven-shaking divine image, Chuzan was amazed. Sure enough, as a divine ability produced by the system, it was incomparably powerful. The heaven-shaking divine image's power was unparalleled. Once it was used, it had the power to shake the heavens, and once it was fully mastered, it could shake the Great Tao. At its most basic level, it could suppress and break techniques. It was not an exaggeration to say that Chuzan could use the heaven-shaking divine image to directly suppress and shatter the domains of his enemies. Any domain would be rendered useless by Chuzan's heaven-shaking divine image. Not taking into account divine abilities and techniques, Chuzan could be said to be invincible in the Supreme Realm with the heaven-shaking divine image. Chuzan narrowed his eyes slightly, and a figure that seemed to have heaven-shaking power appeared behind him. The divine image's face could not be seen clearly, but it gave people a feeling of supreme power. Rumble. The surroundings shook, and ripples started appearing in the space around him. The heaven and earth array formation was activated, concealing this phenomenon from the outside world. The heaven and earth array formation enveloped the surroundings, after which none of what went on inside the small courtyard could be detected from the outside. The heaven-shaking divine image continued to grow larger and, in the end, it reached a height of several hundred meters. It was almost as if it was holding up the sky as it gazed down imposingly upon the world below. Chuzan was very satisfied with heaven's shaking divine image. Once the divine image appeared, it would intimidate countless people. With just one look, one could tell that it was very awesome. Only a super big shot would possess something like this. Combined with the 7-colored divine light, it was definitely the perfect way to show off. The first thing Chuzan did was to take out the myriad heavenly mirror. It was time to give Ren Chang, this unnamed disciple of his, some pointers. The 7-colored divine light bloomed around him. His entire body was bathed in divine light. The divine light shone even brighter, enveloping the divine image. It made the divine image even more blinding and imposing, giving off a mysterious and powerful aura. His image as an indescribably mighty figure was strengthened further. Just one look was enough to make people involuntarily prostrate themselves on the ground. Whenever anyone saw the heaven-shaking divine image, their first thought would be that this was a big shot, a super big shot. The myriad heavenly mirrors soon connected to the fallen god cave and to Ren Changhe's stone house. At this moment, Ren Chang no longer looked like a withered mummy. His flesh and blood no longer exuded lifelessness, but rather vitality. His hair had also turned black. At this moment, it almost looked like he had returned to his youthful days. Ren Chang had initially felt that, at his age, he was better off portraying the image of a domineering and majestic old man. Only then would he be able to display the demeanor of a senior expert, and only then would his image match the temperament of a peak-stage heaven realm expert. However, when he thought about it again, he realized that he was only an unnamed disciple of some big shot. He was only a junior in this vast world. Therefore, he restored his appearance to his younger self. He now looked like a handsome, but somewhat resolute, young man. At this moment, the circular halo rippled and the 7-colored divine light shone through. Ren Chang was extremely excited. His master had come to visit him again. He looked up and was immediately shocked by the scene in front of him. He knelt on the ground. What was that? Was that his master's true body? It was too overbearing and powerful. He did not know how large the gap between master and him was, but just a glance was enough to shock him senseless. Master's figure exuded boundless might. Even with his peak stage heaven realm cultivation, which stood atop the 9 zones and 50 regions, he had never heard of or seen such an almighty figure with boundless might. As expected of master, his master was right. The 9 zones and 50 regions were just a remote corner of the myriad realms. "Greetings, master," Ren Chang said respectfully. Chuzan was very satisfied with Ren Changhe's reaction. As expected, the heaven-shaking divine image was extremely awesome. Your body is now full of vitality and you have already recovered to your peak state. Is there anything else that you have yet to comprehend about the yin-yang combination divine seal? Chuzan put on the air of an almighty master. His voice was filled with dignity and exuded confidence. There are still some parts that I don't understand, Ren Chang said in embarrassment. He was indeed lacking. He could not even comprehend a cultivation technique thoroughly and still needed to trouble his master to explain it over and over again. He might be a peak stage heaven realm expert, but, in front of his master, he was indeed just a small fry. Before he met his master, he had been a frog at the bottom of a well. He had not known how high the heavens were, proud and complacent, believing himself to be one of the few people in this world with outstanding talent. In the end, he discovered that he was just a loser. He almost died in the fallen god cave. It was only thanks to his master's mercy that he survived. Chuzan was also somewhat speechless. Ren Chang had been able to cultivate to the peak of the heaven realm, so he should be quite talented. His comprehension ability should not be too poor either. Moreover, he had even boasted that he had reached the heaven realm in 10,000 years and was one of the rare top-notch geniuses in the world. Why could he not fully comprehend the yin-yang combination divine seal? Was it because the yin-yang combination divine seal was too powerful? Or was his comprehension just that poor? Chuzan did not think that the yin-yang combination divine seal was particularly difficult to comprehend. Even without the system assistance, he felt that he would be able to comprehend it in 1 or 2 months. Why did Ren Chang take such a long time to comprehend it? He had even explained the intricacies behind the technique to the other party several times. Chu Zan did not require him to have a deep understanding of the technique, but, at the very least, he should have a basic understanding of the technique, right? In the end, he actually had not finished comprehending it. Ren Chang saw that Chu Zan had remained silent for a long time and felt even more ashamed. He wished he could bury his head into the ground. Tell me, which part do you not understand? He explained the cultivation technique to Ren Chang once more and encouraged him to comprehend it well. After that, he closed the myriad heavenly mirrors connection to the fallen god cave. After thinking for a while, he activated the myriad heavenly mirrors connection to Du Yuan. The image projection rippled. Du Yuan was not in the small clan that he was the guardian of, but rather in a valley. Moreover, his aura was in disarray. It was obvious that he had just fought a big battle. Opposite Du Yuan stood two men in green. They were both Supreme Realm experts. Their strength was on par with Du Yuan's. 1 versus 2. It was no wonder Du Yuan was in such a sorry state. Like I said, this is a misunderstanding. I'm not here to save Xiao Liang, Du Yuan said with a gloomy face. Xiao Liang, Chu Zan was stunned. Was that not the name of the abandoned son of that major clan in the western region? Du Yuan had once asked for his opinion on this matter, on whether or not to participate in the capture of this guy with the protagonist halo. Chapter 66. Just two ants. How did Du Yuan get involved with Xiao Liang? From the looks of it, the two green-clothed men were chasing after Xiao Liang. Their strength was at the second level of the Supreme Realm. Du Yuan's strength was also at the second level of the Supreme Realm. Fighting 1 versus 2, Du Yuan was obviously not their match and had suffered some losses. Chu Zan was slightly surprised. Although Du Yuan was an itinerant cultivator, he had obtained a fortuitous opportunity and the cultivation technique he cultivated was not weak. Even if the two men in green came from a major power with a storied history, Du Yuan should have been able to deal with them. After interacting with Du Yuan for so long, Chu Zan had a very good understanding of Du Yuan's capability. He had once crossed a minor realm and killed an enemy who was stronger than he was. It could be seen from this that Du Yuan's strength was plenty strong. In the past, he could be said to have been a heaven's blessed level character. Examining the situation again, Chu Zan came to a sudden understanding. Du Yuan, an expert at the second level of the Supreme Realm, was actually still using a low-grade Emperor-level weapon. The two green-clothed men, on the other hand, were using mid-grade Emperor-level weapons. It was already a 1 versus 2 situation, so, coupled with the fact that his opponents had the advantage in terms of weapon quality, Du Yuan was naturally at a disadvantage. Low-grade Emperor-level weapons did not amplify Du Yuan's combat strength, and even somewhat hindered him from exerting his full strength. The mid-grade Emperor-level weapons were able to withstand the full strength of their cultivation, allowing them to display their full combat strength. Given such a situation, it would be strange if Du Yuan was not at a disadvantage. As an itinerant cultivator, it was understandable why the weapon he wielded was a little inferior. Back then, he had obtained a fortuitous opportunity. He also possessed an excellent cultivation technique as well as medicinal pills. The only thing he lacked was a powerful spiritual weapon. The Emperor-level weapon in his hand was something that he had paid someone a considerable price to forge. HMPH. How dare a small itinerant cultivator like you interfere in the matters of the Xiao clan? If it really has nothing to do with you, then surrender. If our investigation doesn't yield any results, I will naturally let you go. A green-clothed man coldly snorted. Du Yuan's face was dark. If he surrendered, he would die without a doubt. Even if they found out that the matter had nothing to do with him, the Xiao clan would not let him go. They would definitely use certain methods to control him and make him one of their lackeys. At this moment, he was thinking about how to escape. Fortunately, the small family clan that he was overseeing had never made a move. What happened here would not implicate the small family clan. However, there was no way for him to return there after this. From the looks of it, he would have to continue on as an itinerant cultivator. The western region does not belong to your Xiao clan alone. Although I am an itinerant cultivator, the two of you must think clearly whether or not you really want to force me to fight to the death. A fierce look flashed across Du Yuan's eyes. Although the Xiao clan is not the only force in the western region, it is not something a small itinerant cultivator like you can provoke. The two green-clothed men sneered. Their bodies moved and they were about to attack. Du Yuan's strength was not weak. Even if they had the advantage in terms of weapons, he would still be able to fight. In a 1 versus 2 situation, even if he could not kill one of them, he could still heavily injure one. However, once the other party was heavily injured, the other Supreme Realm experts of the Shao clan would definitely hunt him down and kill him. A large clan like the Shao clan would not allow their reputation to be tarnished, and would kill any and all of the itinerant cultivators they offended. This was especially true for a Supreme Realm itinerant cultivator, as the potential damage that could be caused by a Supreme Realm expert's rampage was immeasurable. Under normal circumstances, they would not be willing to offend such a powerful itinerant cultivator, especially if they did not have the confidence to kill him. However, the other party seemed to have something to do with Xiao Liang. Whether it was a misunderstanding or a deliberate act, it no longer mattered. In the end, Xiao Liang had managed to escape because of him. The other party had to pay with his life. Suddenly, above Du Yuan's head, a circle of light rippled. A 7-colored divine light burst forth. What was that? The hearts of the 2 Shao clan elders were startled, and their figures stopped in their tracks. They looked at the circle of light above Du Yuan's head in shock and bewilderment. Du Yuan was overjoyed. Senior had come to chat with him. With Senior's strength, it would be effortless for him to resolve this crisis. Senior, Little Du is in a bit of a pickle. Can Senior help? Chu Zan's figure appeared. His figure exuded boundless might and was bathed in divine light. Just a glance was enough to shock people. He looked to be as powerful as a deity, incomparably powerful. Du Yuan was shocked. Was this Senior too powerful? The Shao clan elders were even more shocked. Their hearts trembled. Who was that? What kind of method was this, appearing here through the endless space? Too terrifying. After a single glance, they already had the intention to retreat. Regardless of whether Du Yuan had intended to save Xiao Liang or not, he had such a terrifying expert behind him, so this matter had to be written off. Moreover, Du Yuan saving Xiao Liang was very likely a misunderstanding. That figure was enough to make one's mind shake from just a glance, not to mention that strange method of appearing through the endless space. Even the legendary Heaven Realm powerhouses could not do such a thing, right? Little Du, those 2 are just ants. The corners of Du Yuan's mouth twitched. I can't even beat 2 ants. Does that make me more useless than ants? For a moment, Du Yuan was speechless. Do you think those 2 ants can escape from me? Chu Zan moved the myriad heavenly mirror and arrived above the 2 elders of the Shao clan. The elders of the Shao clan were so scared that they were about to turn and run away. They were trembling, with fear evident on their faces. Senior, this is all a misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding. The 2 of us didn't mean to become enemies with Enroth or Du. The halo was hovering above their heads. From such a close distance, they could feel the boundless might emanating from the figure. They felt their legs go weak, and they almost knelt down right there and then. Chu Zan was very satisfied with the Shao clan elders' reactions. The heaven-shaking divine image was indeed awesome. His strength and aura seemed to be even more boundless when it was projected through the myriad heavenly mirror. It's a misunderstanding. This venerable self is too lazy to make a move. If I crush you 2 ants to death, it'll dirty my hands. Chu Zan started to scare them because the other party could not see through him. Du Yuan wanted to cry but no tears came out. If Senior crushed the Shao family's elders to death, he would dirty his hands. They were just 2 little ants, after all. As for himself, he could not even beat those ants. Fortunately, Senior did not feel that conversing with him was beneath him. Alas, his strength was too weak. At this moment, Du Yuan realized that he, a dignified Supreme Realm expert, was actually just a little ant. The elders of the Shao clan felt very uncomfortable. They were usually the only ones who called other low-level cultivator ants. Unexpectedly, it was their turn to be humiliated. They finally understood what it felt like to be on the receiving end. Should they say something fierce? Should they try to resist? After seeing that imposing figure, they no longer dared to resist. Yes, we are ants. Killing us will dirty Senior's hands. At this moment, they had to go with the flow and follow their hearts. Cowardice. Seeing the previously arrogant Shao clan elders cower, Du Yuan sighed in his heart. Strength was indeed everything. Little Du, how do you think we should deal with these 2 ants? Chu Zan looked at Du Yuan and asked. The Shao clan elders immediately looked at Du Yuan, their eyes seemingly pleading with him. They blinked their eyes, indicating that they could compensate him. They even shook the mid-grade Emperor-level weapons in their hands slightly. The meaning behind this was self-evident. They would compensate Du Yuan with an Emperor-level weapon of mid-grade or higher. Du Yuan thought for a moment. Killing the Shao clan elders would definitely offend the Shao clan. As an itinerant cultivator, he definitely could not afford to bear their ire. If not, he would have to live a life trying to avoid being hunted down. He could not always rely on Senior, and could not be greedy in asking for Senior's help again and again. After this shocking incident, the Shao clan would realize that he had a powerful backer behind him, so they would not dare to make things too difficult for him. Moreover, he could also obtain a mid-grade Emperor-level weapon, or perhaps even a high-grade Emperor-level weapon. Chapter 67. Du Yuan's Great Fortune. Senior, this matter was originally a misunderstanding. Senior shouldn't dirty his hands because of these two ants. Since these two ants have realized their mistake, there's no harm in sparing their lives, Du Yuan thought for a moment before saying. The Shao clan elders' expressions were unsightly. FCK, why do you keep talking about ants? If you can't even beat us ants, aren't you worse than an ant? However, at this moment, their lives were in the hands of Du Yuan, so they did not dare to say a single word. Moreover, Du Yuan had such a powerful figure backing him. There was no way they could afford to offend him, or they would risk offending this almighty character. However, I do want some compensation from them. I'll be satisfied as long as it makes up for my losses. Chu Zan was not surprised by Du Yuan's decision. He did not want to kill the Shao clan elders because he wanted to avoid getting into trouble and being hunted down wherever he went. If he killed the Shao clan elders, there would be no witnesses, so even if Du Yuan said that he had a powerful figure behind him, the Shao clan would not believe him. As such, to get the Shao clan to believe him, and intimidate the Shao clan, he had to show mercy. Besides, Du Yuan did not want to trouble Chu Zan again and again. Having known Du Yuan for quite some time, Chu Zan was aware of his character. He was a cautious person who tried his best not to offend others. Due to this, the small clan that he was the guardian of, despite having a supreme realm expert like him, kept a low profile and did not act arrogantly. Since that's the case, these two ants should hand over everything they have to Little Do as compensation. Then they should scram. ... Even though the Shao clan elders' hearts ached, they did not dare to resist or negotiate. This unknown expert was too powerful. Even if he was not above the heaven realm, he was definitely a terrifying existence at the peak of the heaven realm. Of course, the greater possibility was that he was above the heaven realm. Without saying anything else, they took out their storage bags and threw them over to Du Yuan along with the Emperor-level weapons. Wiping off their cold sweat, they respectfully asked, "Senior, can we leave now?" Leave. The Shao clan elders ran off as fast as they could. It was as if they were afraid that Chu Zan would go back on his words. After covering a distance of tens of thousands of li in one breath, they finally stopped for a breath. Their souls were still shaking, and their entire bodies felt like they had just come out of a trance. They had been scared shitless by Chu Zan, and their minds were on tenterhooks the entire time. Once they relaxed, they naturally felt a sense of exhaustion, and their souls trembled. However, the two of them did not think that way. They believed that the remnant aura of that unknown expert had almost crushed their souls. That person was too terrifying. Just what kind of expert was that? Was he a hidden old monster from the western region, or was he an expert from outside the western region? Or perhaps even an expert from outside the northern zone? They felt that this entire matter was unfathomable. The Shao clan elders looked at each other, relief etched on their faces. Each one felt as if they had survived a disaster. "Thank you, Senior," Du Yuan said respectfully. At the same time, he handed over his storage bag to Chu Zan. "Such items are useless to me. You can keep them." Chu Zan refused. "Senior saved Du Yuan. I know my talent is insufficient and that my strength is as weak as an ant's, but I also want to repay Senior for saving me. I'm willing to be your servant and do whatever you ask of me." Du Yuan gritted his teeth and bowed respectfully. Generally speaking, becoming a servant was an extremely abject fate. No expert would normally be willing to be a servant. However, in Du Yuan's opinion, being able to work for a powerhouse like Chu Zan and gain his recognition was the greatest opportunity and honor. Before meeting Chu Zan, Du Yuan had always thought of himself as a top powerhouse. After meeting Chu Zan, he realized that he was just a frog in a well. A mere Supreme Realm expert was just an ant. In the eyes of that powerhouse, the Supreme Realm was just like the mortal realm. The difference in their perspectives was too great. If he was able to work for such an expert, even as a servant, it would also be counted as a fortuitous opportunity. His status would also immediately become different. He too yearned for the myriad realms of the heavens. Unfortunately, even Heaven Realm experts did not have the qualifications to go there, much less a puny Supreme Realm cultivator like himself. He felt that it was necessary to improve his own status and foundation. As long as he obtained Senior's approval, reaching the Heaven Realm was not impossible. Even the legendary Divine Realm would be within reach. Chu Zan was becoming more and more satisfied with Du Yuan. With such a responsible subordinate running errands for him, he would be much less worried. Moreover, Du Yuan's aptitude was not bad. Otherwise, how could he, an itinerant cultivator, manage to cultivate to the Supreme Realm? Du Yuan could be groomed and, more importantly, he was loyal. Just because the former head of that small family owed him a favor, he had protected the small family and become its guardian. You've got heart, you've got heart. Chu Zan pretended to be silent for a moment and said, well, it's fate that we met. You can run errands for me in this world. Du Yuan was overjoyed. Du Yuan pays his respects to your excellency. Very good, get up. You can integrate your soul with this seal. With this seal, you'll be able to go to the myriad realms in the future. Chu Zan waved his hand, and the soul seed seal floated over through the myriad heavenly mirror. Although he knew that Du Yuan was a loyal person, if one day the latter discovered that he had deceived him, there was still a chance of the other party seeking revenge on him out of anger. The probability of him being exposed was indeed very low. However, the affairs of the world were hard to predict. What if he really was exposed? To be safe, he still planted a soul seed seal on Du Yuan. After planting the soul seed seal, he did not exert his will. Other than removing any ill feelings toward himself and thoughts of disobeying him, there was actually nothing different about Du Yuan. As long as he did not use the seal, Du Yuan would not notice anything wrong. After all, Du Yuan had always respected him and would not be suspicious just because he became more respectful toward him. Du Yuan did not hesitate at all. In fact, he seemed a little impatient. He put the soul seed seal into his divine soul. In an instant, Du Yuan felt that he had become more respectful toward Chu Zan. Cultivate well. I'm going to patrol the 10,000 worlds. Yes, Your Majesty. Du Yuan bowed respectfully. Chu Zan closed the 10,000 heavenly mirror. He felt extremely comfortable. He now had a servant at the second level of the Supreme Realm. Other than Ren Chang, Du Yuan was the most powerful subordinate. You didn't leave seclusion. With just your glib tongue, you tricked a Supreme Realm expert into becoming your servant. You have been rewarded with the purple flame burning heavens technique and the flame spirit all. The system's reward notification rang out. He examined the reward. The purple flame burning heavens technique was a fire attribute cultivation technique. Was this specially prepared for Du Yuan? Du Yuan cultivated a fire attribute cultivation technique, which he had obtained from a fortuitous opportunity. He had relied on this cultivation technique to reach the Supreme Realm. Moreover, he was a powerhouse among those at the same level as he was. However, the cultivation technique that Du Yuan cultivated was only at the heavenly scripture level. Moreover, it was on the weaker end when compared with other heavenly scriptures. It was not even a divine technique. In Chu Zan's eyes, it was just a trash cultivation technique. The cultivation technique and secret technique that he currently possessed were all at the divine technique level. Chu Zan no longer cared about cultivation techniques that were at the heavenly scripture level. It just so happened that this purple flame burning heavens technique could be imparted to Du Yuan. It could be considered a reward for him to become his servant. He was his great fortune. The purple flame burning heavens technique was a cultivation technique that was above divine techniques in terms of level. Looking at the flame spirit all, it was a 3-foot-long all engraved with purple mysterious fire patterns. It was a divine weapon. He would give it to Du Yuan as well. Divine weapons were not considered rare among Chu Zan's possessions. The number of rewards he received from the system continued to pile up, which increased the variety and the quality of the items in his possession. For example, the Spirit Slayer saber and the like were his initial rewards, but Chu Zan now treated them as trash. To him, weapons below the heaven level were considered trash. After receiving the purple flames burning heavens technique, the image of purple flames appeared in his mind, roaring as if they could burn the heavens. Chapter 68. This young man's situation. Chu Zan pondered. When the purple flames burning heavens technique was combined with the void heart flame, it would become even more powerful and difficult to guard against. Moreover, if one cultivated the purple flames burning heavens technique, regardless of whether it was refining pills or artifacts, it would be twice the result with half the effort. Unfortunately, he did not have any subordinates who could refine weapons or pills. Otherwise, he could have passed on this technique to them. Chu Yun's talent in refining pills was very strong. However, she cultivated the great Luo Emperor scripture, which was enough for her to display her talent in refining pills. She did not need to change her cultivation method for the time being. There was still one more chance to use the myriad heavenly mirror. Now that he had broken through, he happily decided to initiate a random connection. He wanted to see who would appear on the other side of the myriad heavenly mirror. Chu Zan would not mind giving the other party some opportunities. After all, he had too many secret techniques and treasures. The image shifted, and an underground cave appeared. Chu Zan was surprised. He was directly connected to an underground cave. This was the strength of the myriad heavenly mirror. It could ignore distance as well any obstacles and connect directly to its target. It was also due to this that the two elders of the Shao clan had been so afraid. That was why they didn't doubt that Chu Zan was a super expert. After all, even Heaven Realm's experts would not have the ability to pull off such a feat. Moreover, Chu Zan's heaven-shaking divine image and seven-colored divine light were too imposing. They could not see through Chu Zan's cultivation and strength, let alone through the myriad heavenly mirror. As Chu Zan examined the surroundings, he had a feeling that this place was either an abyss or a prison, deep and unfathomable. Moving the image projection around, Chu Zan saw a figure sitting cross-legged in the cave. It was a man in his 20s. There were traces of blood on his body, and his aura was disarray. He had suffered serious injuries. At this moment, he was healing his injuries. He swallowed a stalk of a precious herb in his hand. His cultivation was at the third level of the Unity Realm. To have been able to reach the third level of the Unity Realm at his age, he was definitely a genius. In terms of talent, he did not lose out to Su Shaner in the slightest. After all, Su Shaner cultivated the Grand Moon Immortal spell and, with the support of his medicinal pills and cultivation resources, her cultivation speed skyrocketed. The other party did not have the same amount of cultivation resources as Su Shaner did, nor did he have an equivalent cultivation technique. Chu Zan checked and found that the cultivation technique fluctuations emanating from the man's body had exceeded the level of a heavenly scripture level technique. The cultivation technique he had was likely a divine technique. He moved the image projection so that he could see the man's body and face clearly. What a coincidence! Could it be that this was the fated person of the Western region? It seemed that the day's final use of the myriad heavenly mirror had connected him to Xiao Liang, who was the abandoned child of the great Shao clan of the Western region. At this moment, the jade pendant that hung around Xiao Liang's neck flickered with light, and a graceful figure floated out. Although the figure looked somewhat illusory, Chu Zan could still tell that it was peerlessly beautiful. More importantly, this was actually the weakened soul of a Heaven Realm expert. Chu Zan was speechless. He had guessed correctly. This fellow, Xiao Liang, really possessed the protagonist halo. Although he did not have an old grandfather to guide his cultivation, he still had a peerless beauty with great strength. Of course, given the choice, every man would choose to have a peerless beauty instead of an old grandfather. Master, Xiao Liang opened his eyes. If I make another 2 or 3 moves, I will fall into a state of deep sleep. You must leave the Western region as soon as possible. Master, I will leave the Western region as soon as possible. Xiao Liang gritted his teeth and said hatefully, Shao clan, I will definitely have my revenge one day. Cultivate well. Everything is about strength. As long as you break through to the Heaven Realm, the Shao clan will be nothing. Master, don't worry. I will definitely cultivate to the Heaven Realm within 1,000 years and help you rebuild your body. Xiao Liang's gaze was firm as he said this. Chu Zan muttered in his heart, cultivate to the Heaven Realm within 1,000 years. If it was so easy to cultivate to the Heaven Realm within 1,000 years, then Ren Cheng would not have been known as a top-notch Heavens Blessed of the 9 zones and 50 regions. However, if he was the fated person of the Western region, perhaps it was possible for him to cultivate to the Heaven Realm within 1,000 years. One day he would ask Ren Cheng if there was anyone in the 9 zones and 50 regions who had managed to reach the Heaven Realm in 1,000 years. 1,000-year Heaven Realm? How is that possible? The beautiful soul shook her head and said, as the saying goes, 100-year Emperor Realm, 1,000-year Supreme Realm, and a 10,000-year Heaven Realm. Those achievements represent the standard for top-notch Heavens Blessed in the 9 zones and 50 regions. Even if you cultivated to the Truth Realm in 10 years, it would take more than 10 years to break through to the Emperor Realm. Moreover, there is a natural chasm separating the Supreme Realm from the Heaven Realm. Countless experts at the peak of the Supreme Realm used to be called top-notch geniuses, but most of them ended up stuck at this stage for tens of thousands of years without being able to break through. If you want to break through to the heaven realm, you need a fortuitous opportunity. Without it, no matter how talented you are, you can forget about breaking through to the heaven realm in 10,000 years. Xiao Liang was stunned and asked, reaching the heaven realm is so difficult. Don't be discouraged. With my guidance, and your great talent and luck, it should be no problem for you to break through to the heaven realm. The beautiful soul comforted Xiao Liang. Recalling something, she said, in my generation, there was once a person who reached the heaven realm within 10,000 years. He was almost invincible among those in the same realm. He broke into the demon's territory alone and escaped unscathed, though I'm afraid that he has already died by now. Xiao Liang was overwhelmed with emotion. He looked fascinated and asked, Master, who was that person? That person was Ren Chang, the celestial master, who shook the 50 regions of the 9 zones 100,000 years ago. Ren Chang. Chu Zan was stunned. This beautiful woman's soul was from the same era as Ren Chang. Xiao Liang had the protagonist halo, and the beautiful woman's soul was from ancient times. Judging by the beautiful woman's words, Ren Chang must have been very powerful back then. It seemed that his unnamed disciple had not been bragging after all. Master, I will definitely become like the celestial master and shake the entire 9 zones and 50 regions. Xiao Liang said with a firm expression. This young man's understanding of the world's power structure was too limited. Ren Chang was a mere unnamed disciple of his with low self-esteem, yet Xiao Liang was still using the man as a role model. It was necessary to correct this young man's thinking and broaden his horizons. The 9 zones and 50 regions were just a desolate corner of the myriad realms. As for whether the myriad realms existed or not, that was not important at the moment. He just had to try his best to fool them. I believe in you. The beautiful soul was very gratified. Lianger, after you leave the western region, head to the southern region. The laws of heaven and earth there are incomplete, and Emperor Realm experts mostly avoid the place. Moreover, the Asura ancient land is about to open. The stronger powers of the 9 zones will restrict the number of Emperor Realm experts and above who can go there. If you head to the southern region, you can avoid the Shao clan's pursuit. The Asura ancient land is also an opportunity for you. Yes, Master. Xiao Liang nodded. The beautiful woman's divine soul was about to return to the jade pendant, and Xiao Liang was just about to continue healing his wounds, when ripples appeared over his head, and a halo appeared. From within the halo, 7-colored divine light shot forth. The master and disciple were shocked. Xiao Liang looked at the halo in shock. His first thought was, could it be that the ancestor of the Shao clan was here to kill him? However, on second thought, that was not right. The ancestor had not appeared for 10,000 years. He might even be dead. Moreover, he was also his descendant. There was no reason for him to kill an extremely talented descendant of his. The beautiful woman's divine soul was even more shocked. What kind of technique was this? This seemed to be beyond the scope of even heaven realm experts. She did not sense any space fluctuations. This meant that the other party was not nearby. Even heaven realm experts could not pierce through space over long distances. Chapter 69. Both Tribulation and Fate. When Chu Zan heard that Xiao Liang's destination was actually the southern region, he thought of something. He was tempted. This guy was probably the fated person of the western region. Taking him in as a disciple and having more errand runners would not be too bad. It was time for him to make an appearance. Since he was in a particularly good mood today, he would bestow this master and disciple pair a chance. Chu Zan immediately revealed himself. A heaven-shaking figure bathed in divine light could be seen on the other side of the halo. They did not know where he was or where he came from, but his mere presence made them feel like prostrating themselves on the ground. An unknown existence had suddenly appeared in front of them. Gulp. Xiao Liang swallowed his saliva and felt his heart tremble. That beautiful divine soul was even more shocked. She was once a heaven realm expert and could easily sense that the figure in front of them was majestic and unfathomable. It seemed that even the legendary divine realm could not compare to this figure's strength. At a glance, his aura was as deep as an abyss and as unfathomable as the ocean. It was far beyond the scope of the heaven realm. Such a terrifying expert had suddenly appeared. Was it an opportunity or a disaster? The beautiful soul did not dare to hesitate any longer and immediately bowed. Junior Lu Piao Piao greets Senior. Xiao Liang directly knelt down. Xiao Liang greets Senior. It was too shocking. The majesty of this figure was deeply imprinted in his mind. Just by sitting there, this person had the power to shake the heavens. Just what kind of terrifying expert was he? Greetings, greetings. Senior Chuzan had the demeanor of an expert. His tone was amiable and carried a tone of appreciation for a junior. This venerable self is patrolling the myriad realms of the heavens. It can be considered that the two of you and I are fated to meet. Lu Piaopiao's heart was shaken. Myriad realms of the heavens. Why had she never heard of it? She was a heaven realm expert, and not some weak cultivator who knew nothing of the world. She knew many of the secrets of this world. If she had never heard of it, it meant that this was definitely a big secret. Forgive my ignorance, but this junior has never heard of the myriad realms of the heavens. Lu Piaopiao said respectfully. Xiao Liang kneeled on the ground, not daring to say a word. He felt that his strength was too weak and that his status was too low. At this point, he thought it was best if he just kept silent. Kneel, be respectful, perhaps Senior would bestow treasures on him if he was happy. Given your insufficient strength, it's only normal that you haven't heard of it. Chuzan began his spiel. He had fooled Ren Chang, who was far superior to Lu Piaopiao, so this would not be a challenge. In addition, when he fooled Ren Chang, Chuzan did not have the heaven-shaking divine image. Now that he did, his words would be even more convincing. No one would doubt that he was a terrifying and boundlessly powerful expert. You might not know about the myriad realms of the heavens, but do you at least know about the specific situation of the 9 zones and 50 regions? Chuzan pretended to ask. He felt that the waters in the 9 zones and 50 regions ran quite deep, even though heaven realm cultivators were already considered peak experts. However, above the heaven realm, there was the legendary divine realm. Would the 9 zones and 50 regions not have a divine realm cultivator? I do know about it. The 9 zones and 50 regions, the 5 human zones, the demon race zone, the monster race zone, and the chaotic zone with all kinds of races mixed within. Of the 9 regions, only the desolate ancient zone is filled with mystery. Rumor has it that the desolate ancient zone is bigger than the other 8 zones. Many heaven realm experts have explored the desolate ancient zone, but they only reached the periphery and countless experts have died in the process. The desolate ancient zone is the only unexplored zone. Rumor has it that only divine realm cultivators can enter, and that only one can only break through to the divine realm in the desolate ancient zone. Legends speak of the presence of a divine realm expert in the desolate ancient zone, though for some reason, that expert does not leave the desolate ancient zone. Lu Piaopiao provided a brief description of the 9 zones and 50 regions. Chuzan narrowed his eyes. It turned out that the desolate ancient zone was the place where the waters were truly deep. It was no wonder that even Ren Chang, this awe-inspiring character, had been trapped in the desolate ancient zone's fallen god cave. Since everything about the desolate ancient zone was unknown, then the path to the myriad realms of the heavens could temporarily be placed in the desolate ancient zone. In that case, he would say that those who reached the divine realm all traveled to the myriad realms of the heavens. In addition, only those in the divine realm had the qualifications to go to the myriad realms of the heavens. Thinking this, Chuzan opened his mouth and said, "Little girl, your knowledge only scrapes the surface of the truth. Since we met by fate, this venerable self will give you a hint." Lu Piaopiao was speechless. She had already been a heaven realm expert 100,000 years ago. He actually called her a little girl. However, this senior should have lived for God knows how many years. Given his age, him calling her a little girl was not a big deal. "Senior, please explain. The 9 zones and 50 regions are just a remote corner of the myriad realms. The divine realm you speak of is just a mere emperor realm there. I can exterminate countless such people with a single breath." Lu Piaopiao's soul trembled. She was completely dumbfounded. Was the legendary divine realm so weak? He could exterminate countless divine realm cultivators with a single breath. Although she had some doubts, she felt that what this unknown existence said could possibly be true. He also said that the 9 zones and 50 regions were actually just a remote corner of the myriad realms. In that case, how powerful and vast were the myriad realms? One had to know that, in the 9 zones and 50 regions, no one knew how vast the desolate ancient region was and how many secrets it hid. So the existence of the myriad realms was not unimaginable. At this moment, Lu Piaopiao felt that her understanding of the world had been overturned. She no longer had the bearings of a heaven realm expert. She felt incredibly insignificant. Xiao Liang's mind was also buzzing. He had just taken Ren Chang as a role model, and his goal was to shock the 9 zones and 50 regions. Well, to be precise, it was just to shock the 8 zones. After all, the desolate ancient zone was too mysterious, so he would not be able to shock anyone there. However, the world was divided into 9 zones. Naturally, the moment he opened his mouth, he mentioned 9 zones, not 8 zones. Someone was now telling him that the 9 zones and 50 regions were just a corner of the myriad realms. How crazy was that? In an instant, he felt that his bold words earlier had been too insignificant. So it turned out that he was a frog at the bottom of a well. Chu Zan was very satisfied with Lu Piaopiao and Xiao Liang's reactions. They looked so shocked that they were shaking and trembling all over. They were scared, right? That was right, young people had to have bigger dreams. Using Ren Chang as a role model, what kind of dream was that? That guy had been fooled by him and was now mired in self-doubt. He truly believed that he was a good-for-nothing piece of trash. The path to the myriad realms is in the desolate ancient zone. Young man, work hard. Chu Zan encouraged him with the identity of a senior expert. Lu Piaopiao was shocked, so the mysterious desolate ancient zone was the pathway to the myriad realms. It all made sense then. There were rumors of divine realm cultivators in the desolate ancient zone, but these cultivators had never left the zone for some unknown reason. It turned out that they had all gone to the myriad realms. At this moment, Lu Piaopiao felt that she was a frog at the bottom of a well who did not know how high the heavens were. Thank you for your explanation, senior. Lu Piaopiao was very excited. She understood now. Many heaven realm experts had been searching for this great secret for a long time, but they had never found it. You're welcome, little girl. Chu Zan looked very pleased. I can see that you're in a precarious state. Lu Piaopiao immediately became excited. Could it be that senior wanted to help her rebuild her body? For an expert like him, rebuilding her body would be a simple matter. In the end, she had been overthinking things. Chu Zan indeed had a treasure to reconstruct one's physical body, but he would not give it to her for no reason. Since you are in this state, it is both a tribulation and fate. As for which one it ends up being for you, it all depends on your comprehension. Lu Piaopiao was a little disappointed. However, after thinking about it, since senior said that it was both a tribulation and fate, she wanted to find the fate in the tribulation. Chapter 70. Senior's conduct is too noble. Lu Piaopiao asked respectfully, Senior, please explain. What is fate? Fine, this venerable self will give you some pointers. Whether or not you can gain anything from it depends on your comprehension ability and luck. Chu Zan said, you are already in the divine soul state. The tribulation naturally means that you have lost your physical body. Your divine soul has lost its vessel, but fate also resides in the divine soul. How can the divine soul be condensed? The soul is the root and the source of all enlightenment. Use your soul to comprehend the laws of the great Tao, and guide the essence of the great Tao into your soul. If you do, your divine soul will transform. Once the soul has transformed, it will contain the essence of the great Tao, and will be connected to heaven and earth. The soul holds heaven and earth, as well as the laws within it. In your soul, the laws of heaven and earth are under your control. Chu Zan made a few inscrutable remarks. Of course, he was not talking nonsense. There was some basis behind his words. To sum up, she had to use her soul to connect to the great Tao. With that, her soul would be supported by the laws of heaven and earth. The area covered by the power of her divine soul would then be under her control. As long as it was within the range of her laws, life and death would be under her control. To put it bluntly, he was trying to deceive Lu Piaopiao. Her soul could integrate with the laws and control the laws. In this state, she could even comprehend the great Tao. Since the laws will be under your control, then, your physical body can be recreated with a simple thought. Chu Zan finished his sentence. If she really controlled the laws, it would naturally be very easy for her to obtain a physical body. This was fate. Lu Piaopiao fell into deep thought. She was shocked, as expected of a senior expert. His soul could draw in and integrate with the great Tao and use its laws. However, how was she going to connect to the great Tao? The great Tao was unpredictable. Even heaven realm experts found it difficult to grasp the great Tao. Heaven realm experts controlled a part of the laws of heaven and earth. A heaven realm expert's domain was a part of the laws of heaven and earth. However, they still could not connect with or comprehend the great Tao. The great Tao was everywhere, so how could she comprehend it? In her divine soul state, she could also use her heaven realm domain. However, it consumed too much soul power and, without the support of her physical body, the soul power she consumed would take a long time to recover. Although the domain of a heaven realm expert was almost perfect in terms of its own laws of heaven and earth, to perfect its laws, it needed to integrate with the true laws of heaven and earth in the outside world. However, it could not be entrusted with the laws of heaven and earth. If her soul could be entrusted with the laws of heaven and earth, she would be able to control the true laws of heaven and earth, and not the laws she constructed within her own domain. The difference in strength between the two was self-evident. If she could be entrusted with the laws of heaven and earth and control the laws of a region, even if she had to face a heaven realm expert in her divine soul state, she would not be afraid. She could even break through the other party's domain and kill them by relying on the true laws of heaven and earth. If she could accomplish this, her strength would definitely be stronger than when she was at her peak. This was because relying on the laws would naturally allow her to comprehend the laws more deeply. It would also be of great help to her in breaking through to the divine realm, to the extent that, if she mastered this, breaking through to the divine realm would only be a matter of time. After thinking through this, she finally understood why Senior said that this was both a tribulation and fate. The crux of the matter was that, by connecting her divine soul with the great Tao, she would use it as a catalyst to comprehend and gain control of the true laws of heaven and earth. However, she did not know how to connect to the great Tao. Lu Piao had no clue where to start at all. Just as she was about to ask for advice, Senior seemed to sense her thoughts and said indifferently, "The laws are not to be taught lightly." Lu Piao's heart trembled, and she could not bring herself to ask for advice. Chu Zan continued, "The great Tao is omnipresent. Every flower and grass is part of the Tao. Every water and stone is also part of the Tao. Calm your heart and slowly comprehend it. Thank you for your guidance, Senior." Lu Piao knelt on the ground and bowed respectfully. "This was a great favor. It was fate that caused us to meet. Forget it, this Venerable One will grant you an item to help you recover your divine soul." A small bottle appeared in Chu Zan's hand. Soul nurturing liquid. 1 drop was enough to fully recover the soul power of Heaven Realm expert. The system had rewarded him with a large vat of the stuff, so Chu Zan did not care about giving away a small bottle of the substance. After all, he was a senior expert. Would he not appear too stingy if he gave out half a drop? Moreover, the substance would not be given to her for free. Xiaoliang and Lu Piao's next destination was the southern region. Chu Zan had plenty of ways to recruit the other party and get them to run errands for him. It was also necessary to restore Lu Piao's soul power and give her some trump cards for their protection. The divine soul of a heaven realm expert would be enough to stir up the Asura ancient land. After all, it was a little boring to stay in seclusion and not smash the chessboard or mess up other people's plans. Of course, in order to ensure that Lu Piao would not go wild in the southern region, Chu Zan secretly planted a soul seal in the soul-nurturing liquid. He poured out a drop of the soul-nurturing liquid, which now looked like a seal. It was very mysterious, right? It would shock those who saw it. After all, a senior expert's treasure had to be extraordinary. Once it was incorporated into her divine soul, she would no longer be capable of harboring ill intentions toward him. Chu Zan was secretly pleased. When Lu Piao's soul recovered, Xiaoliang would once again have a trump card, and his confidence would be greatly boosted. He was journeying to the southern region to temper himself. However, he would not reach there anytime soon. Still, he would definitely arrive before the opening of the Asura ancient land. By that time, Chu Zan would have broken through to the heaven realm. "Little girl, your cultivation realm is too low, so I don't have any treasures that are suitable for you. This bottle of soul-nurturing liquid is barely passable, and it just so happens that you can use it. 1 drop can recover your soul power consumption. I'll give it to you." As he spoke, he tossed the bottle over through the myriad heavenly mirror. "Thank you, Senior." Lu Piao was extremely excited. Without the support of her physical body, it was incredibly difficult to recover the consumption of her soul power. As long as she could recover the consumption of her soul power, she would be more confident when facing their enemies. Even if she ended up fighting against an expert who had just entered the heaven realm, she was confident that she could escape with Xiaoliang. She caught the small bottle. Chu Zan continued, "Take 1 drop and see if you can withstand it." Of course, he had to personally see if the soul seed seal could be absorbed into her divine soul. Giving someone a bottle of soul-nurturing liquid for free was not something he would do anyway. "Yes, Senior." Lu Piao did not hesitate and felt even more grateful to Senior. He was worried that her soul could not withstand it and that something unexpected would happen. If she took it while he watched, Senior could save her in time if something went wrong. Senior's was such a noble person. Perhaps this was the true bearing of a senior expert. Lu Piao poured out a drop of the soul-nurturing liquid. A drop of clear liquid appeared. It seemed to be wrapped around a small seal. Lu Piao exclaimed in surprise. As expected of the treasure given by Senior, it actually had its own form. She then consumed the drop of soul-nurturing liquid. Her exhausted divine soul was continuously nourished and quickly recovered. At the same time, her favorability towards Senior soared. All of the doubts and questions she had about him disappeared. Lu Piao was moved. After receiving such a gift from Senior, if her reverence for him did not increase, she would have doubted her own character. At least it seemed like her character was still upright and she knew how to repay favors. Therefore, she felt that it was very normal for her to revere him more. In a short while, the soul power that she had used up completely recovered, returning to its peak state. Lu Piao was extremely grateful. Chu Zan was relieved. The bottle of soul-nurturing liquid was well spent. Xiao Liang was her disciple. If his soul was damaged, he would also be given a drop of the soul-nurturing liquid. The soul seal would naturally then be incorporated into his soul. Even if the soul-nurturing liquid in Lu Piao's hand was stolen, sold, or borrowed by a good friend, it just meant that he would have a few more servants. Chapter 71. Soul Communion Dao Technique. Chu Zan suddenly realized that he could actually control a person without being noticed. He could infuse the soul seed seal into heavenly materials and earthly treasures and sell them to certain experts. Once the other party consumed it, they would be controlled by him. Of course, the prerequisite for this was that the soul seed seal had to be based on the heavenly materials and earthly treasures of the soul category. Chu Zan memorized this insidious method of silently controlling a person. Perhaps it might come in handy in the future. Xiao Liang prostrated himself on the ground, feeling a little anxious. Senior seemed to have forgotten about him. Could it be that Senior had neglected his existence because Master was a beautiful woman? Of course, if Master obtained an opportunity, it also meant that he had gained his own opportunity. However, he secretly wanted Senior to directly give him something as well. Senior. Xiao Liang raised his head pitifully. Little fellow. Chu Zan shook his head and could not help but laugh. He said, forget it. This venerable self created a simple technique countless years ago. I'll teach it to you. This should suit your current needs. Little fellow, you have to remember that the greatest opportunities are the ones that you can use. As he spoke, he threw a small booklet over. It contained a secret aura concealment technique that he had just jotted down. A divine technique. Since he was a senior expert, the level of the gifts he gave naturally had to match his lofty demeanor. As such, the lowest level technique he could provide was a divine technique. Xiao Liang could also use this technique to avoid the Xiao clan's pursuit, and he could even secretly make his way back to take revenge. In the novels, the protagonists that were hunted down relied on powerful concealment techniques to turn misfortune into luck, and even used them to cause all sorts of trouble. Since Xiao Liang did not have one, he figured he would give one to him. This would allow him to truly possess the characteristics of a protagonist. Xiao Liang was overjoyed. He caught the booklet that floated down and was instantly shocked after reading it. An aura-concealing divine technique. Once he cultivated this technique, even a heaven realm expert would not be able to detect him. Senior was too powerful. The simple techniques that he casually created countless years ago were actually divine techniques. Thank you Senior for bestowing this technique on me. Xiao Liang respectfully kowtowed 3 times. What a polite young man. Chu Zan was greatly gratified. Work hard in your cultivation. This venerable one will not disturb you further. He had almost finished his act, and his goal had been achieved. It was time to leave. Chu Zan did not waste the last mark of the myriad heavenly mirror on Xiao Liang. This fellow would not die. Moreover, his intended destination was the southern region. As long as he entered the southern region, he would be able to find him through the Black Moon Tower's intelligence network. Junior earnestly requests Senior to grace us with your honorific title, so that Junior can forever remember it in my heart and be grateful for Senior's great kindness. Lu Piao suddenly prostrated herself. Honorific title. Chu Zan was tempted. He had already deceived quite a few people, so how could he not even have a name? Moreover, he would continue to deceive them. Perhaps one day, these people who had been deceived by him, or who he had been taken in as his servants, would meet each other and get into some sort of conflict with each other. He did not want them to kill each other. Therefore, it was very necessary for him to leave them with a title by which they could identify each other. Since he wanted to leave an honorific title, he naturally had to come up with one that sounded like a super big shot. Chu Zan thought about it and said, my honorific title. He seemed to be deep in thought and, after a long while, He said with a slightly emotional tone, "It was a long time ago, but the powerhouses in the myriad realms all called me eternal, immortal, handsome, unparalleled, mighty, virtuous, supreme and holy number one Tao Master in the myriad realms." The name is a little long, but it was more or less such a name. Lu Piao and Xiao Liang were stunned when they heard it. They did not understand how awesome it was. It was so awesome. I, Lu Piao, am thankful for the gift from the number one Tao Master of the myriad realms. Lu Piao was momentarily stunned, after which she knelt on the ground and kowtowed 3 times. Xiao Liang followed closely behind. "You're both thoughtful juniors," Chu Zan said with a very gratified tone. "Let's meet again if fate allows. If we're fated, I'll give you another opportunity." After saying that, Chu Zan deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror. "I respectfully send off the mighty, virtuous, supreme, and holy number one Tao Master." Lu Piao and Xiao Liang respectfully said. Their hearts were filled with excitement. At the same time, they prayed that they would be able to meet this senior again and obtain the great opportunity that he promised to bestow upon them. "Lianger, this is a great opportunity for us, master and disciple. We must not disappoint that senior." "Master, I understand." Xiao Liang's gaze was resolute as he replied in high spirits, "The 9 zones and 50 regions are no longer my goal. I want to go to the myriad realms." Ren Chang, the celestial master, was also just a small pawn. He no longer regarded him as a role model. Xiao Liang had already thrown Ren Chang to the back of his mind. "Good job, Lianger. This is all because my understanding of the world was too lacking in the past." Lu Piao sighed. "I'm going into seclusion to understand how the soul communicates with the great Tao." "Master, don't worry about entering seclusion. With the secret technique that senior gave me, the Xiao clan won't be able to find me." Lu Piao returned to the jade pendant while Xiao Liang continued to heal his injuries. When Chu Zan deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror, a system notification appeared. "You used your eloquence and an ingenious scheme to trick a heaven realm servant into giving you an extremely resounding title. You have been rewarded with the Soul Communion Tao technique." As expected, his bluff had triggered the system's reward. Chu Zan had gradually figured out the rules behind the system's rewards. He examined his new reward. The soul can be transported into the great Tao and live within it. It can mobilize a part of the power of the great Tao for its own use depending on the strength of the soul. It allows the user to send a wisp of their soul into the great Tao. This was a very powerful secret technique. The soul sustained by the great Tao. In theory, as long as the great Tao that sustained the soul did not collapse, the soul would never be annihilated. Moreover, it could mobilize a portion of the power of the great Tao for its own use. However, the amount of power that could be mobilized from the great Tao depended on the level of the soul. This technique would usually only be used to completely entrust the soul to the great Tao when one's physical body died. One could also rely on this technique to temporarily entrust one's soul to the great Tao, allowing one to gain a deeper understanding of the great Tao. Moreover, one could split a wisp of one's soul and entrust it to the great Tao. This soul wisp could then constantly comprehend the great Tao, and one could even borrow the power of the great Tao to fight against one's enemies. In addition, it was a life-saving secret technique. If one entrusted a wisp of one's soul to the great Tao, in the event of death, one could rely on this soul wisp to recover. This would help the user avoid death and have their Tao disappear. It was an extremely powerful secret technique. Chu Zan sighed. The system's products were indeed awesome. With the Soul Communion Tao technique, one could comprehend the various laws of heaven and earth. It had to be known that the laws of heaven and earth were far less profound than the great Tao. Chu Zan then received the Soul Communion Tao technique. He closed his eyes slightly and comprehended the profundity and power of this secret technique. It took him several hours to completely comprehend it. After comprehending the Soul Communion Tao technique, Chu Zan was able to create several techniques that relied on the laws of heaven and earth. It all seemed too simple now. It was like studying the knowledge from kindergarten all the way to high school all at once. Looking back, the kindergarten questions that he once thought were difficult had naturally become simple. He could probably even endlessly create more of these techniques. Chu Zan was in such a state. Chapter 72, Myriad Laws Taoist Robe. Chu Zan pondered for a long time before finally creating a technique that allowed his soul to be entrusted to the laws of heaven and earth. He could also send out a wisp of his soul in the same manner. However, this technique could only be cultivated by those at the Emperor realm and above. When an Emperor realm expert cultivated this technique and combined it with the power of their domain, their strength would double. They could continuously draw upon the power of the laws of heaven and earth in the region to perfect the laws of their domain. It was not an exaggeration to say that cultivating this technique could greatly increase the success rate of breaking through from the Emperor realm to the Supreme realm. Chu Zan was delighted. Although this secret technique was far inferior to the Soul Communion Tao technique, it was still the first secret technique he had personally created. It was worth celebrating. Unfortunately, the myriad heavenly mirror had already been used 3 times today. First, he had to give it a name. Let's call it the Heaven and Earth Minor Technique. It could only be considered a minor technique. He was the Almighty, Great, Virtuous, and Supreme, and Holy Number 1 Tao Master, so naturally, such a cultivation technique was only worthy of being called a minor technique. Chu Zan decided that if Lu Piao was lucky enough to be connected to the myriad heavenly mirror again, he would pass this minor technique to her. In any case, she was already his disciple. If he gave her a minor technique that he created himself, she would be able to run errands for him better. You stayed in seclusion and created a minor secret technique. You have been rewarded with the myriad laws Taoist robe. The system reward was triggered. Chu Zan was delighted. As expected, he could always rely on the system to give him good stuff when it mattered. He received the reward. It was a long robe that contained a Tao charm, as if it was surrounded by the Great Tao, or perhaps even woven from the Great Tao. It almost did not seem to be a piece of clothing, but part of the vast Great Tao instead. Chu Zan put on the Taoist robe. He felt as if he was bathing in the Great Tao. His comprehension of the Great Tao soared. What a treasure! With but a thought, the Taoist robe would change its appearance according to his will. After putting on this robe, Chu Zan believed that he could fool even divine realm experts. From a glance, he seemed like the personification of the Great Tao itself. So what if the other party was a divine realm expert? He would fool them as well. With the divine light, the divine image, and the Taoist robe, no expert would be able to escape his trickery. At this moment, Chu Zan was in high spirits. He wished that the myriad heavenly mirror would connect him to a divine realm expert so that he could trick that expert into becoming his servant. With a thought, the robe's Tao charm became restrained and ordinary, as if the robe was an ordinary piece of clothing. Chu Zan was in a good mood. After staying in seclusion for so long, today was the best day of his life. Not only did he obtain a beautiful female servant with heaven realm cultivation, but he also created a minor technique and received the reward of the myriad laws Taoist robe. He took out a sword casually. It was a divine weapon. He threw it in front of Ding Yu, who was inside the universe space. Disciple, I'm happy today, so I'll give this sword to you. Ding Yu looked at the sword in front of him with a shocked expression. This was an emperor-level weapon. He had a feeling that this sword was not a simple emperor-level weapon. Looking at it carefully, the sword seemed to have a spirit. It was surrounded by the laws, and seemed sharp even though it was currently sheathed. It was quite extraordinary. More importantly, this sword could be stored in one's dantian, allowing it to be nourished by spiritual power at all times. A weapon that could be stored in one's dantian was definitely not an ordinary emperor-level weapon. It was a rare treasure that had certain characteristics. Perhaps it had even been forged with special materials. It could be nourished and strengthened continuously. Master was too extravagant. At this moment, Ding Yu was filled with tears of gratitude. He had just acknowledged him as his master, and his master had already given him such a precious treasure. It was as if he had received a mountain of kindness. He reached out to grab the hilt of the sword. He wanted to store the sword in his dantian to nourish it, but his instincts told him that with his current cultivation, it would take a very long time for him to nurture the sword. If he focused on nourishing the sword during this period of time, it would be difficult for his cultivation to improve. Buzz! The sword vibrated as if it was transmitting joy. As expected, this sword had a spirit. Su Shan'er's face was filled with envy and jealousy. She had been a maid for such a long time and had been diligent and hardworking. She had done all kinds of dirty and tiring work, and she had done it to Chu Zan's satisfaction. However, until now, she had not received a single treasure. As for Ding Yu, he had just become a disciple not long ago, but he had already been given a divine sword. Ding Yu did not know how valuable it was, but Su Shan'er did. After all, she had come from a large family in the central region and had seen many emperor-level weapons. She had even seen heavenly weapons before. Whether it was the laws or the aura surrounding this sword, both were far greater than what a heavenly weapon was capable of exuding. Naturally, it was a divine weapon. This is a divine weapon, a treasure sword. It is not something you can use at your level, Su Shan'er reminded him. Ding Yu was shocked. It was actually a divine weapon. He thought such things only existed in legends. Gulp. Ding Yu was so moved that he was about to cry. He rushed out of the universe space and knelt in front of Chu Zan. I will never forget Master's great kindness. All right, that's enough. Chu Zan waved his hand. It was just a divine weapon, nothing more. Su Shaner stood at the side sourly, looking at Chu Zan with a wronged expression. Sir, okay, I get it. I'm happy today, so I'll give you a divine weapon too. Chu Zan waved his hand, and a snow-white whip appeared in front of Su Shaner. The snow-white whip was also surrounded by laws. One could vaguely sense that it contained the power of ice. Su Shaner was overjoyed. She held the long whip in her hand and immediately fell in love with it. This long whip was just right for the cultivation technique she was currently cultivating. Thank you, sir. She happily held the long whip and returned to the universe space to cultivate. It was a divine weapon. Even the Su family did not have a clan guarding treasure of this level. Although she could not use it now, she would be able to unleash some of its power once she reached the Emperor realm. When she was strong enough, she would return to the central region to take revenge. This would make those dog-eyed people from the Su family die of jealousy and regret. Consolidate your cultivation as soon as possible so that I can teach you the Supreme Sword Dao. Chu Zan waved his hand and had Ding Yu return to the universe space to continue consolidating his cultivation. He had broken through from the first level of the profound realm to the first level of the spirit realm. His cultivation had advanced too quickly, so he needed a certain amount of time to stabilize his cultivation. Not everyone was like Chu Zan, who could break through and stabilize his cultivation at the same time. Chu Zan lay on the deck chair, narrowed his eyes, and continued to comprehend the great Tao. Counting the time, there were only 10 days left until the 3-year milestone. Now that he had broken through to the first level of the Supreme Realm, it was time to completely control the Black Moon Tower of the Southern region. The true person in charge of the Black Moon Tower of the Southern region was that mysterious One-Star Tower Lord. According to the information from the Black Moon Tower's guard department, the One-Star Tower Lord was also the strongest person in the Southern region. The strongest cultivators in the Black Moon Tower's guard department were the 3 half-Emperor Realm experts. They were only a step away from becoming Emperor Realm experts and would be able to do so after the laws of heaven and earth in the southern region recovered. Now, they were all controlled by Chu Zan. The One-Star Tower Lord had been confirmed to be an Emperor Realm expert. He was the strongest expert in the southern region aside from Chu Zan. He was also the reason why the unruly evil Imperial Court did not dare to rob the Black Moon Tower. The presence of a true Emperor Realm expert in the dark acted as a deterrent. A half-Emperor Realm expert might be only one step away from breaking through to the Emperor Realm. However, compared to a true Emperor Realm expert, the difference in their combat strength was still vast. Even if a half-Emperor Realm expert could use a false domain, he would still be powerless against an actual Emperor Realm expert. However, Chu Zan had broken through to the Supreme Realm. He would be able to suppress an Emperor Realm expert with a single finger. The One-Star Tower Lord was only at the first level of the Emperor Realm anyway. He could easily suppress this Tower Lord even if he was armed with a variety of secret treasures from the Black Moon Tower. Chapter 73, 3-Year Milestone Reward, Soul Chasing Bow. Chu Zan called Su Shaner over and asked her to send a message to Bao Hongyan to find a way to contact the One-Star Tower Lord. As long as she could meet him, she could suppress him and forcefully plant a soul seal on him. One day later, Bao Hongyan arrived. The One-Star Tower Lord rarely saw anyone, even the gold-level Tower Lords. He would only appear if there was an important matter or if the Black Moon Tower encountered something that the gold-level Tower Lords could not resolve. Therefore, Bao Hongyan was unable to meet with him for the time being. Chu Zan knocked on the armrest with his finger and threw a pill over to Bao Hongyan. This pill is very beneficial to Emperor Realm cultivators. I believe this will give him enough incentive to meet you. Bao Hongyan looked at the pill in her hand and inwardly exclaimed, even the Black Moon Tower didn't have such a perfect Emperor-level pill. Yes, Master, I will definitely complete this mission. Bao Hongyan no longer had any thoughts about climbing the ranks of the Black Moon Tower. After all, it was only a matter of time before the Black Moon Tower changed hands. Right now, she only wanted to efficiently carry out Chu Zan's orders and ride on his coattails. She wanted to break through to the Emperor Realm as soon as possible. Chu Zan had chosen to train her among the 3 gold-level Tower Lords. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As long as her cultivation reached the peak of the truth realm, she could rely on a pill like this to break through to the Emperor realm. As a member of the Black Moon Tower, she could apply to leave the southern region temporarily to head to another region where the laws of heaven and earth were intact in order to break through. Chuzan had given her pills that were beneficial for Truth Realm cultivators, therefore her cultivation speed had progressed rapidly. For Bao Hongyan, meeting Chuzan was her biggest opportunity. Before Bao Hongyan left, Chuzan asked her to pay attention to any news about Xiao Liang. If she discovered Xiao Liang's arrival in the southern region, she had to report the news to him immediately. One day later, the mysterious one-star tower lord stood in front of Chuzan in a respectful manner. Looking at the old man in front of him, Chuzan was speechless. The one-star tower lord of the Black Moon Tower, the actual person in charge of the Black Moon Tower in the southern region, was a first-level Emperor Realm cultivator. Chuzan finally understood why the Black Moon Tower was willing to send an Emperor Realm expert to guard the barren southern region. It was all because Lao Guitai's strength was weak and his aptitude was poor. The first level of the Emperor Realm was basically his limit. If he wanted to advance further, he would have to encounter either great fortune or a fortuitous encounter. More importantly, Lao Guitai did not have much time left. He could only live for a mere 100 years more before reaching his lifespan limit. Perhaps he had come to the southern region to seek out the Asura ancient land in a final attempt to obtain an opportunity to advance further and extend his lifespan. It was no wonder he rarely appeared. He was busy thinking about how to break through and extend his lifespan. That being said, he had made the right decision in coming to the southern region. The medicinal pill that Chuzan passed to Bao Hongyan to lure him out could be considered his opportunity. With that medicinal pill, it would not be a problem for him to break through to the second level of the Emperor Realm given the foundation that he had accumulated over countless years. His lifespan would be extended, but that was all. The moment Chuzan laid eyes on him, he gave up on the idea of nurturing him. His level of talent was too low, which made the entire venture unprofitable. That medicinal pill could be considered as his reward for working for Chuzan. Chuzan promptly asked him about the Asura ancient land. He knew much more than Bao Hongyan and the other two gold-level tower lords. For example, he told Chuzan that the Asura ancient land was trapped in a space somewhere and that, during that battle, many major powers in the southern region had perished. The locations of these large factions and sects disappeared together with the Asura ancient land during the battle. Once the natural laws of the southern region were restored, they would gradually reappear. Some of the current historical sites in the southern region had actually been the territories of some of these factions or large families that had disappeared due to the battle. The gradual recovery of the natural laws caused these historical sites that had disappeared to reappear in this world. As for that battle itself, Lao Guitai had read about it in the records of the Black Moon Tower. It seemed that it had been a plot back then to subvert the Great Qin dynasty. Unfortunately, he was unaware of the specific details. As a one-star tower lord, there were still many high-level secrets that he was not privy to. His immediate superior was his senior brother, a third-level Emperor Realm expert and a two-star tower lord of the Black Moon Tower. This two-star tower lord resided in the northern region. He also did not know where the headquarters of the Black Moon Tower was or who the true person in charge above it all was. The most valuable information Chuzan obtained from Lao Guitai was regarding the major forces in the southern region. The three sects and two empires were actually not limited to the southern region. After the war with the demons, the laws of heaven and earth in the southern region collapsed, and these major forces were forced to leave the southern region. As such, the forces they left behind in the southern region could only be considered branches that protected their original territories. The Great Qian dynasty had the shortest legacy among them, being founded after the war with the demons. He allowed Lao Guitai to leave. Chuzan narrowed his eyes. The three sects and two empires had deep foundations. How could the Great Qin dynasty, which Qin Qian had just founded, fight against the Great Qian dynasty? At the moment, things were still stable. However, once the Asura ancient land opened, the main forces behind these various factions would return. How could Qin Qian resist them then? Would the Great Qin Emperor return as well? Was Qin Qian only paving the way for the Great Qin Emperor's return? Was the person who plotted against the Great Qin Emperor related to the Great Qian dynasty? The possibility of this being the case was very high. Chuzan did not dwell on the matter. He would ignore such problems so long as it did not affect him or his seclusion. The 3-year milestone was coming. Chuzan waited with bated breath for the rewards he would receive. Time passed peacefully. Su Shaner was working hard on her cultivation, adamant about becoming strong enough to take revenge on the Su family back in the central region as soon as possible. Ding Yu continued to consolidate his cultivation after his breakthrough. Yesterday, Chu Tianming's roar could be heard from the ancestral residence again. Chu Zan sighed. It was fortunate that Chu Yuan had left the family's territory. Otherwise, he might have been skinned alive by the furious Chu Tianming and family elders. He had become a sinner of the Chu family. You've been cooped up for 3 years. Continue to work hard and stay in seclusion. You have been rewarded with the soul-chasing bow. The reward for 3 years of seclusion was actually a bow. Chu Zan received the reward. A simple brownish-yellow bow appeared in his hand. There were fine lines engraved on the bow. They were spread out in a regular pattern. The Dao charm lingered around them. The fine lines almost looked like a great road. The bowstring was ethereal and did not have a physical form. It looked like part of the great Dao itself. Chu Zan was amazed. This bow was definitely not simple. He examined the description of the soul-chasing bow. The soul-chasing bow imbues the power of the great Dao and the laws into its arrows. Every arrow strikes true, regardless of distance or space. After reading the description of the soul-chasing bow, Chu Zan was pleasantly surprised. He finally had the ability to kill enemies without leaving his house. In terms of cultivation, the soul-chasing bow imbued the power of the laws of heaven and earth into the arrows. If one's cultivation was strong enough, the bow would imbue the power of the great Dao into the arrows. Every arrow would strike true. Moreover, it ignored space and distance. As long as he planted a soul-chasing seal on the enemy's body, no matter which space or secret realm the enemy hid in, he would still be able to hit them from inside his small courtyard. Moreover, if his cultivation was strong enough, he only needed to silently recite the name of the person, after which the soul-chasing bow would be able to lock onto the person and shoot him to death. In such a scenario, there was no need for him to plant the soul-chasing seal on the person, or even meet them. He only needed to silently recite their name and it would lock onto the person he wanted to kill. No matter how far apart they were, he would be able to shoot the other person. It was terrifying. Chapter 74, Ancient Sites and Black Heart Grass. Although the soul-chasing bow was unreasonably strong, Chu Zan was not able to use it to its full potential at the moment. He could not lock onto and kill a person with just a thought. No matter how powerful a weapon was, it still needed to be wielded by someone with sufficient strength. At the current stage, Chu Zan could either lock onto the enemy with the soul-chasing seal, capture a trace of the enemy's aura, or use other methods to locate the enemy. Only by doing so would he be able to ignore distance and space and shoot them to death. Moreover, if the person he had locked onto was too strong, the person could also withstand his attacks. After all, the power of the arrows was also related to his own cultivation. Given Chu Zan's current first-level Supreme Realm cultivation, it was definitely impossible for him to kill a Heaven Realm expert. Chu Zan played around with the soul-chasing bow for a while before putting it away with great satisfaction. In the future, even if he stayed inside the small courtyard, he would have the ability to make a move personally. There were many ways to locate the enemy, the soul-chasing seal was only one of them. Once the soul-chasing seal was planted, it could not be removed. Its function complemented the soul-chasing bow. Chu Zan decided to give the method to plant the soul-chasing seal to those who needed it. For example, Ding Yu and Su Shaner. Once the two of them encountered an invincible expert outside and needed their help, they could use the soul-chasing seal on the enemy. That way, Chu Zan could immediately locate and kill the other party. If the reward he received for the 3-year milestone was this powerful, then what kind of reward would he receive at the 5-year milestone? Or even the 10-year milestone? Chu Zan was filled with anticipation. Somewhere in the southern region, Chu Yun stood on a small hill and stared at a certain location where ripples were forming in front of her. An ancient site was about to appear. Every ancient site meant an opportunity. It was just a matter of the size of the fortuitous encounter. Those who came back from these ancient sites would never return empty-handed. Of course, some ancient sites also contained a certain amount of danger. Chu Yun had just broken through to the 4th level of the spirit realm. Given her age, it could be said that her talent was outstanding. After all, the laws of the southern region were incomplete and relatively barren. Cultivation here would be slower than in other regions. As the laws of heaven and earth continued to recover, the speed of her cultivation was already accelerating. The laws of heaven and earth's recovery was a sign. Chu Yun was already able to refine high-quality void unity pills. Despite only possessing a spirit realm cultivation, she was actually able to refine a pill that could be used by Void Realm martial artists, and even Unity Realm martial artists. The level of her talent was extremely hard to come by in the southern region. I wonder how the Chu family is doing now. They wouldn't make things too difficult for 13th brother, right? Chu Yun naturally knew about the changes that were happening in the Great Qin dynasty. She was worried that Chu Zan would be treated badly by the Chu family because of this. She was also informed about the Chu family's situation. She sighed in her heart. It was fortunate that Chu Yuan was not in the Chu family. Otherwise, he would be finished. After exploring this ancient site, I will return to Chu County. After waiting for another day, the ancient site finally opened. It appeared to be a medicinal garden. Chu Yun was overjoyed, but she still entered carefully, wary of the possible dangers. A day later, Chu Yun reaped a bountiful harvest. She looked at a large rock in front of her. There was a purple umbrella-shaped grass with 7 leaves growing under the rock. She was pleasantly surprised. Black heart grass. Unable to hold back her excitement, she went forward and plucked the black heart grass. She carefully took out a jade box and put it away. With this black heart grass, 13th brother will definitely be able to cultivate to the profound realm, spirit realm, or even higher. The black heart grass was a rare spiritual medicine that could increase a martial artist's natural talent. When Chu Yun saw the black heart grass, her first thought was to give it to Chu Zan. As long as Chu Zan's natural talent increased, there would be hope for him to break through to the profound realm, spirit realm, or even higher. After she collected the black heart grass, her harvest of all the ancient spirit herbs in this small medicinal garden was complete. Chu Yun was ready to return to Chu County. Miss, you stole my family's spirit herbs. Shouldn't you be giving me an explanation? Chu Yun's expression changed, and she turned around to look. A young man with a lewd expression and lecherous smile was walking over from the entrance of the ancient site. He was a 6th-level spirit realm cultivator. Your family's spirit herbs. Those who are fated to enter the ancient sites are their rightful owners. Chu Yun cautiously took a step forward and headed toward the entrance of the ancient site. Who said that this was an ancient site? This is clearly my family's medicinal garden. The young man flashed and blocked Chu Yun's path. Bang! Chu Yun directly made her move. She was not a fool. Although she had not personally experienced encounters where others would kill people and steal their treasures, she had heard a lot about it. The other party clearly had evil intentions and wanted to snatch her treasures and kill her. Oh, little girl, you are quite spicy. I like it. The young man raised his sword and stabbed out, blocking Chu Yun's attack. Hong, Hong, Hong. Chu Yun attacked consecutively. Although she was 2 levels lower than the young man, her strength was not weak at all. After all, she cultivated the great Luo Emperor scripture. The young man's expression changed slightly. He had been forced to retreat dozens of meters away. Chu Yun took the opportunity to escape the ancient site. Little girl, you can't escape. Put down the black heart grass obediently. The young man chased after her. Quick, stop her. Chu Yun had just escaped out of the entrance of the ancient site when a middle-aged man suddenly appeared and blocked her path. Spiritual power fist shadows covered all of her escape routes. They trapped her. Chu Yun's expression changed drastically. Was this a truth realm expert? Little beauty, why aren't you running anymore? The young man chased after her with a smile. Chu Yun's heart sank. The Chu family could not afford to offend a truth realm. At this time, she could only hope that the mysterious senior would save her. Hand over the black heart grass and I won't make things difficult for you. I'll even marry you. This is a great honor for you. The young man laughed very happily. Wishful thinking. You don't deserve to marry me. Chu Yun gritted her teeth and glared at him. How am I not worthy? Do you know who I am? The young man straightened his back and said, listen carefully. I am the young master of 9 Swords Mountain, Song Pang. The young master of 9 Swords Mountain. Chu Yun had a look of suspicion on her face. The young master of 9 Swords Mountain, one of the 3 sects and 2 empires, only possessed this tiny bit of strength. Song Pang said in embarrassment, what do you know? This young master is trying to solidify my foundation. Chu Yun understood. The other party's aptitude was not high, which was why he was so determined to obtain the black heart grass. Hand over the black heart grass. If you don't, then don't blame this young master for taking action. Even if you really are the young master of 9 Swords Mountain, don't even think about getting your hands on this. Chu Yun said with a firm gaze. The Chu family could not afford to offend 9 Swords Mountain, but the black heart grass was too important. It was the key to whether Chuzan could break through to the profound realm, or perhaps even the spirit realm. Catch her! Song Pang shouted angrily. He knew that if he attacked, he would not be able to defeat her, let alone catch her. With a thought, the middle-aged man activated his spiritual power by performing certain hand seals and captured Chu Yun. At this moment, a figure appeared silently. With a simple attack, he broke the middle-aged man's spiritual power technique. The newcomer had a cold expression. He was dressed in black and had a mask on his face. It seemed like he was a servant. He was a third level of the Truth Realm cultivator. Who are you? How dare you offend my Nine Swords Mountain? Hey, Nine Swords Mountain, is that something worth bragging about? The masked man smiled contemptuously. Chu Yun heaved a sigh of relief. The person she relied on was that mysterious senior. The masked man before her should be that senior's servant. Since a servant already possessed the cultivation of the Truth Realm, then that senior must be even stronger. Thank you, senior. Chu Yun cupped her hands and bowed. Without looking at Song Pang, she left. Chapter 75. My disciple must never be a simp. This was the second time the masked man had appeared. Before this, Chu Yun had also encountered a crisis. It was the masked man who had appeared to protect her back then too. He claimed that he had been ordered by his master to protect her secretly. He was a quiet person, so he did not converse much with Chu Yun and left soon after. She secretly made up her mind that she had to work hard to research alchemy and cultivate. She had to do her best to obtain this senior's approval as soon as possible. As long as she received this senior's approval, everything she did today would not bring disaster to the Chu family. On the contrary, the Chu family would have a powerful backer. From the masked man's tone, it was clear that senior did not care about the threat of Nine Swords Mountain. It was clear from this just how powerful senior was. Chu Yun had once suspected that the mysterious senior was an expert from Heavenly Cauldron Mountain. The masked man denied it and even disdained Heavenly Cauldron Mountain. Therefore, Chu Yun had a bold thought. The mysterious senior was most likely an expert from outside the southern region. There was even a possibility that he was an Emperor Realm expert. Otherwise, why would he look down on Heavenly Cauldron Mountain and not fear Nine Swords Mountain? Song Pang watched Chu Yun leave with a gloomy face. His guard could not defeat the masked man. However, he needed the black heart grass to raise his innate talent, so he was not willing to give up. Let's go. He and his guard rushed back to Nine Swords Mountain. After Chu Zan finished reading the information about Chu Yun from the Black Moon Tower, he laughed lightly. The young master of the Nine Swords Mountain, in terms of his status, was a good-for-nothing. The black heart grass was indeed a good spirit herb. However, it was useless to him. In terms of talent, who could compare to him? It was no wonder the young master of Nine Swords Mountain was so determined to obtain it. After all, although he was the young master, due to his lacking talent and cultivation base, many geniuses in Nine Swords Mountain probably looked down on him. With his tiny bit of talent, it was absolutely impossible for him to take over the leadership of Nine Swords Mountain in the future. Nine Swords Mountain was a sect, not a clan. Moreover, even if it was a clan, if the clan master's son was too useless, it would be extremely difficult for him to take over the clan. Even if he took over the clan, it would not be long before his position or authority was usurped. Chu Yun was on her way back to Chu County. With the Nine Sword Mountain's abilities, it would not be too difficult to find out who Chu Yun was. Soon, the Nine Sword Mountain's sect master would bring his son to attack her. Chu Zan was looking forward to the other party's attempt. If he was not mistaken, Nine Sword Mountain should be related to Great Qin's emperor. They were likely also one of the parties involved in the plot behind the Asura ancient land. Perhaps someone had placed a chess piece at Nine Swords Mountain to stir up trouble at that crucial moment. Master, I've already consolidated my cultivation. Ding Yu respectfully stood in front of Chu Zan. His eyes were filled with respect and worship. His master was too powerful and mysterious. He had casually given his new disciple a divine sword. Chu Zan nodded and looked at Ding Yu, falling into a state of deep thought. His disciple had a childhood sweetheart. Even though she had dumped him, Ding Yu might still be harboring hopes of once again reuniting with her. In fact, he might even be thinking that, once his cultivation rose, he would be qualified to pursue his childhood sweetheart. The possibility of them getting back together was not high. However, if that childhood sweetheart of his acted coquettishly and cute, she might say that the reason why she fell in love with someone else was to test him and stimulate his potential. She would then say that she still had feelings for him, and that she would not marry anyone other than him. Would that fellow Ding Yu be so moved to the point of reconciling with his childhood sweetheart without any repercussions? That would not do. Chu Zan's disciple could not be a simp. Before this, Ding Yu's sword pulse had yet to be activated, so his meridians were blocked. The experts at Nine Swords Mountain were unable to discover his hidden talent. They only believed him to be a good-for-nothing piece of trash. The Heavens Will sword pulse was a rarely seen sword pulse in this world. Very few people had the capability of unearthing Ding Yu's supreme talent in Sword Dao. In addition, Ding Yu's meridians were blocked and his cultivation progressed extremely slowly. No one would take him seriously and it was unlikely that he would be carefully examined for his talent. Now that Ding Yu's Heavens Will sword pulse had been activated, his talent in Sword Dao became unparalleled. Would Nine Swords Mountain still let him leave if they found out? They would definitely try their best to keep him. Ding Yu had already acknowledged Chu Zan as his master and would definitely not return to Nine Swords Mountain. However, the Nine Swords Mountain would not sever their connection with him just like that. Once they discovered his newfound talent, they would definitely try their best to use his childhood sweetheart to woo him back to their side. At the same time, they would also be able to obtain some treasures from Ding Yu's mysterious master and befriend an expert. Therefore, Ding Yu absolutely could not be a simp. He had to completely forget his childhood sweetheart. Chu Zan quickly came up with a plan. He looked at Ding Yu and said, "Your talent in Sword Dao is excellent, and you have a chance to tread on the path of the Supreme Sword. However, if you want to tread on the path of the Supreme Sword, you have to break through the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword." Ding Yu's expression was solemn as he said, "Master, what are the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword?" Chu Zan did not answer immediately. Instead, he asked, "Do you know why there are so few top-notch sword experts in this world? Do you know why countless sword cultivators are mediocre and have yet to display the true strength of the Sword Dao?" Ding Yu was puzzled. Why did Master ask him this question? The senior experts of Nine Swords Mountain were all very skilled in swordsmanship. Their combat strength was very fierce. It was difficult for them to be defeated by those of the same level. However, since his master had asked him this question, it was likely that the experts of the Way of the Sword in his master's eyes were not quite the same as his understanding of the matter. Perhaps those experts from Nine Swords Mountain were actually not very strong. Was his worldview limited by his poor cultivation? Was that why he believed them to be powerful? After thinking for a moment, Ding Yu said, "Is it because they failed to hone themselves enough, or maybe their cultivation in the Way of the Sword was insufficient and their talent in the Way of the Sword was too poor?" No, Chu Zan shook his head and said, "It's because they only cultivated ordinary swordsmanship, and never progressed to the cultivation of the Supreme Sword. Over the eras, there have been countless people who possessed outstanding talent in sword cultivation, and there were also people who were more talented than you. However, in the end, they did not step into the cultivation of the Supreme Sword and only ended up becoming ordinary sword cultivators that were just a little stronger than others." Ding Yu fell into a state of deep thought. After a long while, a thought flashed through his mind. He said, "I know, Master. It's because they haven't broken through the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword." Chu Zan put on an expression that seemed to indicate that Ding Yu was a disciple that was worth teaching. "Let me ask you, do you want to become a powerful and somewhat famous sword cultivator, or do you want to become a sword immortal who has mastered the Supreme Sword and is famous for all eternity?" Sword Immortal. Although he did not know how powerful a Sword Immortal was, Ding Yu could not help but be fascinated. "Master, I want to be a Sword Immortal whose name is famous for all eternity. I want to tread the path of the Supreme Sword," Ding Yu said with a firm expression. "I'm very satisfied that you possess such determination." Chu Zan nodded with gratification. He was almost done with the setup. He then said, "If you want to tread the path of the Supreme Sword, you have to break through the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword." "Master, I will definitely break through the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword. Please tell me what the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword are." Ding Yu's blood was boiling, and his gaze was resolute. Su Shaner stood at the side and listened in. She was very confused. The 3 stages of the Way of the Sword. She had never heard of this before. Chu Zan was very satisfied with Ding Yu's reaction. He said with satisfaction, "Very good. I believe that you will definitely break through the 3 stages of the Way of the Sword. Listen carefully. The first stage of the Way of the Sword is to sever the emotions that bind your heart. Forget about your sweetheart." Ah, Ding Yu was dumbfounded. The first stage of the Way of the Sword was this. He had to forget about his sweetheart. Su Shaner's mouth was wide open and her face was full of confusion. Chapter 76. No woman in your heart, drawing your sword to slay an immortal? Question mark. Ding Yu was completely dumbfounded. The first stage of the way of the sword required him to forget his sweetheart. Why did he have to forget his sweetheart? A beautiful figure appeared in his mind. Su Shaner was also dumbfounded. What did one's sweetheart have to do with sword Dao cultivation? Chu Zan had said it so seriously too. She thought that it was some extraordinary revelation about the way of the sword, but it turned out to be about forgetting his sweetheart. Do you know the meaning of the first stage of the way of the sword? Do you know why countless sword cultivators are unable to break through the first stage of the way of the sword and tread upon the path of the supreme sword? If you can't even break through the first stage, how can you even talk about the supreme sword? Chu Zan was not surprised by Ding Yu's reaction. Master, please enlighten me. Ding Yu's eyes were slightly confused. Forget about his sweetheart. Forget about her. Would he not be able to tread upon the path of the supreme sword if he did not forget about her? Ding Yu, who possessed the heaven's will sword pulse, had a special obsession with the sword Dao. If you have someone in your heart, then where is the sword? Chu Zan's voice was like the roar of the great Dao as seven-colored divine light bloomed around his body. A halo appeared behind his head and shone in all directions. Sage Master's halo. Looking at his master who was bathed in the seven-colored divine light, Ding Yu was shocked. He suddenly felt that everything his master said was true. Where is the sword? Ding Yu muttered to himself. Can they coexist? Lacking confidence, he asked carefully. How can it coexist? Since it coexists, is your sword still the only one? Is your sword still pure? Ding Yu's brain buzzed. Yes, how can it be exclusive if it coexists? However, the beautiful figure in his mind was holding him back. Forget her. It was easier said than done. Let me ask you, if your sweetheart's friends and relatives want to kill you, will you let them? If one day your sweetheart falls in love with someone else and wants to kill you, will your sword still be able to stab her? If one day your sweetheart falls into the hands of the enemy and they threaten you with her life, what will you do? Chu Zan's voice rang loudly like a bell as it echoed directly into Ding Yu's mind. His face turned paler with each question. If there is another bond in your heart, where is the sword? How can you still focus on the way of the sword? How can you tread upon the path of the supreme sword? Chu Zan narrowed his eyes as he looked at Ding Yu. Ding Yu's face turned pale and his entire body started to shake. For a moment, he did not know how to answer Chu Zan or what decision to make. What should he do? Did he really have to choose between his sweetheart and the supreme sword? You have to know that your sweetheart will only bring you harm. Chu Zan saw that it was almost time, so he directly gave Ding Yu a heart-piercing blow. Boom! Ding Yu's brain was in overdrive. His mind was filled with the words, your sweetheart will only bring you harm. In Nine Swords Mountain, he had been coldly reprimanded, stepped on, and slapped around. He had been sent flying with a kick, and the people around him constantly mocked and ridiculed him. Her pretty face had gone from a charming smile at the beginning to cold glares, ridicule, contempt, and humiliation later on. She never looked at him again. Ding Yu was panting and sweating profusely, and his face was twisted with pain. Chu Zan just looked at him. As the fated person of the southern region, if he could not even pass this test, then he was too useless and unworthy of being Chu Zan's disciple. If Chu Zan did not help him to free himself from this, Ding Yu would sooner or later be cheated by his childhood sweetheart. Su Shaner watched silently from the side. Ding Yu appeared to be in a painful dilemma. It was obvious that his sweetheart had caused him a lot of harm. After 10 minutes, Ding Yu gradually calmed down. The beautiful figure in his mind was no longer gentle and beautiful, but cold and heartless instead. Thinking back to the past, Ding Yu suddenly realized that he had been hurt all along. His master was right, the one he loved would only bring him harm. His gaze gradually became firm. He looked at Chu Zan and said, Master, I understand. You are a promising young man. Chu Zan was gratified. There was hope for his eldest disciple after all. Master, please enlighten me. What is the second stage of the way of the sword? Chu Zan narrowed his eyes and said, the second stage of the way of the sword is, when you see a beautiful woman, don't let your mind wander. You must keep the soul of the sword in your heart. Ding Yu was a little confused. Why was it related to a woman again? You don't understand. Not really. Chu Zan's spiritual power condensed into a person. The person's face and appearance were rough. The person condensed from his spiritual power stood next to Su Shaner. Which one did you look at first? Who did you pay more attention to? Chu Zan asked. Ding Yu looked over in confusion. The first person he saw was naturally Su Shaner, who was dressed as a servant. His attention was also more inclined to Su Shan'er. After all, every normal man would pay more attention to the peerless beauty. It was Sister Su. You were distracted by her beauty, weren't you? Disciple, think about it. When you are fighting with someone, if a beautiful woman appears, she will either flirt with you or act extremely seductively. If you get distracted by her, what will happen to you? Besides, in some illusions, there are countless beautiful women. If you are caught in them, your life will be forfeit. Why is it a woman's beauty? Wheel, opposites attract. This is part of the great Tao of heaven. Ding Yu could already imagine the scene in his mind. He would be holding a longsword and confronting an enemy. Suddenly, from behind the enemy, a beautiful woman appeared and started flirting with him, trying to seduce him. Would he not be distracted by her actions? Given his current state of mind, he would definitely be distracted. Once he was distracted, he would be killed. Hiss. When he thought of this, Ding Yu immediately sucked in a cold breath of air. His master's words were reasonable. Master, I will definitely break through the second stage as soon as possible. That's good. Chu Zan was very satisfied with Ding Yu's performance. In the second stage, seeing a beautiful woman not being distracted as the first part, and having the soul of the sword in your heart as the second. As for what the soul of the sword is, everyone's comprehension is different. You will need to figure it out yourself. Yes, Master. Su Shan'er was a little indignant. After all, up until now, she had only heard Chu Zan express one thing: women were obstacles. Sir, can't a woman become a strong person? Chu Zan glanced at her. Why was this little girl joining in on the fun? It varies from person to person, and it varies from Tao to Tao. Those who walk the path of the Supreme Sword must only be interested in the sword. Chu Zan continued, in other words, it's the same for women who cultivate the Supreme Sword. Just change the distraction from a woman to a man. How can it be the same? Su Shan'er said unwillingly, a woman won't be distracted when looking at a man, right? This little girl was still unconvinced. Chu Zan said seriously, let's not talk about whether you'd be distracted by a handsome man. Let me ask you this. When you are confronting an enemy, an ugly naked man shows up performing dirty gestures and poses in front of you. Will you be confused? Will you be angry? Will you be distracted? If you are not mentally strong, you'll probably scream. Su Shan'er was stunned. Her master was indeed a teacher. He always looked at the problem with such depth. If someone really did that, Su Shan'er could not guarantee that she would not get mad or be disturbed. Can you handle this situation, little girl? Chu Zan ignored her dazed expression and turned his attention back to Ding Yu. For the third stage of the way of the sword, if you don't have a woman in your heart, you can kill an immortal by drawing your sword. Ding Yu's blood immediately surged. If I don't have a woman in my heart, I'll be able to kill an immortal by drawing my sword. I, Ding Yu, must tread upon the path of the Supreme Sword and kill an immortal by drawing my sword. Disciple, you must remember that having a woman in your life will affect the speed at which you draw your sword. Chu Zan warned him solemnly. Master, I know, I will definitely break through the 3 stages of the way of the sword and tread upon the path of the Supreme Sword. Ding Yu's gaze was resolute. Sweetheart, get lost. I, Ding Yu, am a man who wants to slaughter immortals. Chapter 77. I should not have a sweetheart. Chu Zan looked pleased and said, Disciple, I am very pleased that you possess such firm resolve. The 3 stages of the way of the sword are also 3 stages of the heart of the sword Tao. Sever your emotional ties, forget your sweetheart, when looking at beautiful women, do not let your mind, and finally, having no woman in your heart. This is the secret way of the sword. Those who are not strong-willed or lack a firm Tao heart will not be able to complete the 3 stages of the way of the sword. There are countless ordinary sword cultivators. Very few have broken through the first stage. Naturally, these ordinary sword cultivators will not be able to tread upon the path of the Supreme Sword. Su Shan'er suddenly thought of something and said, That's not right, sir. I recall that a certain heartless sword technique exists in the world. Those who cultivate the heartless sword technique possess no feelings in their hearts. Naturally, there will be no women in their hearts. Chu Zan glanced at her. This girl was deliberately causing trouble, right? Ding Yu looked at Chu Zan. It made sense. Since there was a heartless sword technique in the world, could those who cultivated it be considered as having tread upon the path of the Supreme Sword? Chu Zan sneered and said, the heartless sword technique is something that only cowards cultivate. It's a deformed sword technique, a technique that the Great Tao doesn't acknowledge. The 3 stages of the Supreme Sword are directed toward the Great Tao. How can the heartless sword technique be compared to it? What does it mean to be heartless? To forget feelings, to be neither happy, sad or angry. If you lack emotions, are you still human? Chuzan looked at Su Shaner and asked, let me ask you, will those who cultivate the heartless sword technique be angry when they are surrounded and killed by others? Will they be moved by treasures when they see them? Will they draw their swords out in anger when they are humiliated? Su Shaner was stunned for a moment and replied, yes. They feel happiness, anger, and are moved by treasures. How can they be called heartless then? What's heartless is just their feelings. They are a bunch of cowards who don't dare to face the suffering in their hearts who created the heartless sword technique to deceive themselves and others. Chuzan said with extreme disdain. Su Shaner was stunned. His words seemed to make sense. Disciple, don't learn from those cowards and disgrace me, Chuzan said earnestly. Yes, Master, I understand. Ding Yu nodded and paused for a moment, and then said, Master, actually, the 3 stages of the way of the sword contain the truth of the great Tao, especially the stage where there is no woman in your heart. Does it actually mean that one's heart is still like water, and that nothing can cause your heart, or the sword that it contains, to be swayed? Has this disciple comprehended it correctly? The corners of Chuzan's mouth twitched. You really are talented. You have comprehended it correctly. I am pleased that I have such a perceptive disciple. Chuzan nodded and exhorted, you must remember that having a woman will affect the speed at which you draw your sword. Yes, Master. Ding Yu's face was solemn. Master will teach you the way of the sword now. Chuzan raised his finger and pointed. The first part of the heaven-reaching sword technique was transmitted into Ding Yu's mind. Ding Yu still had to break through the 3 stages of the way of the sword, so he divided the heaven-reaching sword technique into 3 parts to be taught. Moreover, by the time Ding Yu finished cultivating the first part, Chuzan would probably be in the heaven realm. Ding Yu was immersed in the comprehension of the way of the sword. The heaven's will sword pulse was activated and the aura around his body pulsated fiercely. It was like a sharp sword unsheathed. 10 minutes later, Ding Yu opened his eyes. He kowtowed 3 times respectfully and said, Thank you, Master, for imparting this technique. Go and cultivate. Chuzan waved his hand and said. Yes, Master. Ding Yu stood up, his expression was firm and his gaze sharp. Returning to the universe space, he sat cross-legged in front of the divine sword. The aura on his body became more and more ethereal and resonated with the divine sword. The divine sword trembled slightly and let out a slight hum. Ding Yu's aura then became more restrained, like an ordinary sword that was stabbed into the ground. Forget my sweetheart. Forget my sweetheart. Ding Yu kept telling himself that he had to forget his sweetheart and break through the first stage of the way of the sword. The way of the sword that his master had imparted to him was incomparably powerful, far beyond what 9 Swords Mountain was capable of. He would not let down his master's high hopes. Ding Yu kept recalling the past, when he and his childhood sweetheart had been together. From their time as happy children, to finally being despised, neglected, alienated, ridiculed and humiliated by the latter. You're just a piece of trash. You're not worthy of me. Ding Yu, although we grew up together, I was young and ignorant back then. Now that I've grown up, I'm not blind. It's impossible for us to be together. Cease your wishful thinking. You were just passing by. Who are you trying to kid? You're here to harass me, right? Or perhaps to disgust me. Ding Yu, for the sake of our past friendship, can you please get lost? He had also let go and stopped looking for that person back then. However, he would always stumble across that person occasionally. Every time he did, he would be humiliated and spurned. Ding Yu kept recalling his past experiences and hypnotizing himself. That person was not worth his time or affection. Master was right. The person he loved would only bring him harm. Forget the person I love. I, Ding Yu, can do it. Since she is already heartless, why should I keep thinking about her? Ding Yu sat cross-legged on the ground with his eyes closed. He strengthened his resolve over and over again to forget that person. The best way to hate someone was to constantly recall the bad side of her and the harm that she had caused him. Ding Yu did exactly that. He believed that as long as he stopped thinking about her and loathed her, he could forget her. She would never become his sweetheart. As he recalled the bits and pieces of his childhood sweetheart, Ding Yu sadly realized that he had always been the one who had given, and had never received anything in return. She wanted all of the medicinal pills and the spirit crystals. Thinking back carefully, she had never given him anything, not even a single worthless item. Master is right. I shouldn't have a sweetheart. Su Shaner looked at him curiously. She felt that something was wrong with Ding Yu. Chuzan did not care how Ding Yu forgot his sweetheart. His goal had been achieved. His disciple would not become a simp. He activated the myriad heavenly mirror and connected it to Ren Chang. "Greetings, Master." Ren Chang bowed respectfully. "There's no need to be so polite." Chu Zan's voice was vast and mighty, as if it came from the great Tao itself. Ren Chang raised his head, and his soul was instantly shaken. He became even more respectful toward his master in his heart. In his eyes, although his master did not reveal his imposing figure, bathed in divine light, there was an aura of the great Tao that lingered around him. The robe on his body seemed to be woven from the great Tao itself. Hiss, just how strong is Master? Ren Chang was shocked. How powerful was he to be able to weave the great Tao into a robe? Are there still any parts that you are confused about? Chu Zan asked. Yes. Ren Chang looked ashamed. Until now, he still had not fully comprehended the yin-yang combination divine seal. Tell me. Chu Zan was speechless. More than once, he had wondered if Ren Chang really was a top-notch heavens blessed. However, he was very famous. The name of the celestial master had shaken the 9 zones and 50 regions. There was no way that he was an ordinary cultivator. Why had he been unable to fully comprehend the yin-yang combination divine seal this entire time? Was the yin-yang combination divine seal so mysterious to the point that even heaven realm cultivators found it difficult to comprehend it? Ren Chang asked his question. After Chu Zan explained it to him, he asked, "Does this realm have a 1,000-year heaven realm cultivator?" Yes. Ren Chang did not know why Chu Zan asked this question. Was it to motivate him? Or did he want to find someone who was more talented than him to represent his martial inheritance in this world? Chapter 78. There was a mysterious senior. Chu Zan raised his eyebrows. As expected, the cultivation benchmark of top-notch geniuses of the 100-year Emperor realm, the 1,000-year Supreme realm, and the 10,000-year Heaven realm were based on normal circumstances. There were always special circumstances where unique individuals surpassed the cultivation speed of these top-notch geniuses. Ren Chang continued, some old monsters, for various reasons or under special circumstances, reincarnated using secret techniques. Due to the accumulation and comprehension of their previous lives, it was not impossible for them to recover their heaven realm cultivation in 1,000 years. Chu Zan thought about Qin Qian. She had cultivated to the half-emperor realm within such a short period of time by relying on the accumulation and comprehension of her previous life. It could be said that, before the emperor realm, as long as there were enough resources, the path of cultivation was a smooth one. Moreover, for most, breaking through to the emperor realm would not be too much of a problem. In addition to the experts who reincarnated using secret techniques, there were also those who obtained the inheritance of great experts. After receiving the inheritance of these great experts, the power and comprehension those experts had would be sealed in their bodies. They would then experience a smooth and rapid cultivation journey, and would be able to break through realms within an extremely short time. All they needed to do was to continuously stimulate the power of the inheritance they had received. However, the cultivators who cultivated using this method mostly had weak foundations due to their reliance on the inheritances. Moreover, when they fully received and activated the inheritance, they would need to spend a very long time polishing their foundations. Otherwise, they would not be able to advance further. Ren Chang disdained this kind of cultivator. He had killed several of these so-called heavens blessed with one hand back then. Chu Zan understood what he meant. Ren Chang was just afraid that he would compare him to this kind of trashy heavens blessed. Ren Changhai's meaning was that although this kind of cultivator would progress at lightning speed, their actual combat strength was nothing worth shouting about. After all, he had crushed several of them with one hand. There were also those who obtained great opportunities and entered some special secret realms. Time passed differently inside these secret realms. 1,000 years inside was equivalent to only a year in the outside world. However, if one counted the time spent cultivating inside these secret realms, the time they took to cultivate was actually not a short amount of time. I heard that such a secret realm exists in the desolate ancient zone. Unfortunately, this disciple's luck was lacking and was not fated to encounter it. Ren Chang sighed regretfully. It's just a secret realm. It's nothing worth shouting about. Chu Zan's tone was very arrogant as he responded nonchalantly. As expected of Master, Ren Chang inwardly exclaimed in admiration. He had found out what he wanted to know, and had given Ren Chang the necessary pointers. It was time for Chu Zan to leave. As usual, he encouraged Ren Chang to cultivate properly. Finally, he said, since you are my in-name disciple, you should at least know my title. Ren Chang immediately knelt on the ground, his face full of excitement. His master was finally willing to tell him his honorific title. This meant that he had formally acknowledged him as a disciple. Listen carefully. Chu Zan's voice was dignified as he said, "The powerhouses of the heavens all call me eternal, handsome, unparalleled, majestic, virtuous supreme, and holy number one Tao master of the myriad realms." Ren Chang was stunned when he heard that. He felt that it was awesome. His master was so awesome. Chu Zan was very satisfied with Ren Changhai's reaction. After a few more words of encouragement, he deactivated the myriad heavenly mirror. Next, Chu Zan connected to Du Yuan. Du Yuan had already returned to the small family that he was the guardian of. He was behaving in a low-key manner as usual. "Your Excellency, since you can be considered a disciple of sorts, I will give you a cultivation technique and a divine weapon." Chu Zan passed the purple flames burning heavens technique to Du Yuan as well as the fire spirit all. Du Yuan was pleasantly surprised. His choice back then had indeed been correct. The cultivation technique given by Senior was more than 100 times stronger than the cultivation technique he had obtained from his fortuitous encounter. With this cultivation technique, Du Yuan was confident that he would be able to reach the divine realm. The fire spirit all was actually a divine weapon. There might not even be a second person in possession of a divine weapon in the entire western region. Chu Zan threw him a few bottles of Supreme Realm cultivation pills as well, which would be enough to allow Du Yuan's strength to soar within a short period of time. Given Du Yuan's current second-level Supreme Realm cultivation, he was still rather weak. Fortunately, there was still some time until Asura Ancient Land would open, so Du Yuan still had sufficient time to raise his strength. It was impossible for him to reach the Heaven Realm, but with the help of medicinal pills and the powerful purple flames burning heavens technique, he could still cultivate to the 8th or 9th level of the Supreme Realm. Du Yuan's innate talent was not bad after all. The last daily use of the myriad heavenly mirror connected randomly to an ocean, so Chu Zan did not encounter any living beings. Over the next few days, Ding Yu immersed himself in the cultivation of the first stage of the Way of the Sword. Su Shaner was also cultivating hard. It was then that Chu Yun came back. 13th brother, I've brought you a treasure. The first thing Chu Yun did when she came back was to run over to Chu Zan's small courtyard. The small courtyard had not changed much. The universe space was concealed by Chu Zan, so Chu Yun could not sense it. She took out an umbrella-shaped spirit herb with 7 leaves and handed it to Chu Zan. 13th brother, this is a spirit herb that can increase one's natural talent. Eat it quickly. Chu Zan stretched out his hand and patted her head. This girl was quite thoughtful. Despite how precious this spirit herb was, the first thing she thought to do with it was give it to him. It was worth doting on her. Black heart grass, this is indeed a good thing. But your 13th brother doesn't need this thing. You should eat it. Chu Yun's eyes widened and she said in surprise, 13th brother, you know about black heart grass. Chu Zan gave her an enigmatic smile and said, of course I know about it. You should eat it quickly. This thing is not useful to 13th brother. How can it not be useful? Chu Yun was a little anxious. 13th brother, don't worry. Even if you break through, I'll tell Grandpa to allow you to continue to live in the small courtyard. No one will disturb you. Chu Zan chuckled. I don't want anyone to disturb me. No one can disturb me either. No, 13th brother, you have to eat the black heart grass. Chu Yun's expression was stiff. She decided to force the black heart grass into Chu Zan's mouth. If Chu Zan was unable to break through to the profound realm and unable to improve his cultivation, his lifespan would be very short. She did not want to watch him pass away while she continued on her cultivation journey. Chu Yun used her spiritual power and, once she thought that she had Chu Zan under control, she stuffed the black heart grass into his mouth. In the end, for some unknown reason, the black heart grass in her hand ended up inside her own mouth. It instantly melted away and dissolved into her stomach. Chu Yun was dumbfounded. Looking at Chu Zan's expression, her eyes widened in disbelief. 13th brother, your 13th brother's Tao is in this courtyard. I have no need for any treasures, Chu Zan chuckled. I understand. Chu Yun suddenly jumped up excitedly and hugged Chu Zan's neck from behind. I knew it. 13th brother wasn't trash. Shish, don't tell anyone. Yes, this is a secret. Chu Yun nodded her head and her mouth curled into a smile. After learning that Chu Zan was even stronger than she was, Chu Yun became very excited. She sat at the side and talked about her experiences. 13th brother, let me tell you a secret. A very powerful senior has taken a fancy to my talent and is testing me. Once I pass the test, the senior will take me as his disciple. At that time, we will have a strong backer. That senior might be someone from outside the southern region. He might even be an Emperor Realm expert. Emperor Realm, I don't know if I can ever become an Emperor Realm expert. Chuzan quietly listened to her. He was inwardly laughing. The senior she was talking about was right in front of her eyes right now. Chapter 79, Revealing the Chu family's foundation. Chu Yun stayed in the small courtyard for 2 days. As usual, she went through the cultivation insights Chuzan had prepared and discovered new pill refinement methods and pill formulas. She was somewhat confused. What exactly was the connection between these pill refinement methods and that mysterious senior? That mysterious senior seemed to favor her and test her precisely because of the pill refinement techniques she cultivated. Chuzan pushed all of this onto his father, Chu Chuluo, and lied that it was possible that his father had some kind of relationship with that mysterious senior. Chu Yun felt that it made sense. After memorizing the new alchemy skills and pill formulas, Chu Yun returned to the ancestral residence. Before returning, she sighed and said, if third brother returns to the family's territory, his fate will be very miserable. Chuzan agreed. After such a long time, Chu Tianming's roars could still be heard every now and then. It could be seen how angry he was at Chu Yuan. Chu Yun had returned to the ancestral residence to obtain a new status in the Chu family. Since 13th brother liked peace, she needed to increase her authority and influence in the Chu family so that 13th brother could live comfortably. Chu Yun did not mention anything about Chuzan's strength. One day later, from the small courtyard, Chuzan heard Chu Tianming's laughter coming from the ancestral residence. Ha ha ha, how can my Chu family lag behind the other families? Chu Tianming had broken through to the Unity realm by consuming the Void Unity pills that Chu Yun had refined. The other 3 peak stage Void Realm elders had also broken through. Chu Yun's status in the Chu family skyrocketed, surpassing the future successor of the family head, Chu Qing. She became a precious treasure in the hearts of all the elders of the Chu family. Chu Qing felt very helpless. His status in the family had already dropped to 2nd place. However, he was not unhappy about it at all. After all, Chu Yun had also given him many medicinal pills. He would be able to quickly break through and increase his strength. These pills could even be sold. Chuzan looked at the space underneath the Chu family's ancestral residence. It was time for the Chu family's foundation to be revealed. The Chu family's strength could be allowed to fall behind others. If they were left further and further behind by the other 3 families, the mentality of the Chu family would probably collapse. The big reveal of the Chu family's foundation would naturally be done by Chu Yun. The Emperor-level weapon inside would also automatically recognize Chu Yun as its owner. With Chuzan's strength, it would naturally be easy for him to allow Chu Yun to activate the Chu family's foundation. Moreover, Chu Yun would not even realize that someone had helped her open it. Chu Tianming and the other elders of the Chu family were gathering all kinds of spirit herbs and giving them to Chu Yun to refine pills. They decided to put in a lot of effort to nurture Chu Yun. On this night, with a loud bang, the ground underneath a certain house in the ancestral residence collapsed. A small space suddenly appeared. All the experts of the Chu family were shocked. Chu Tianming headed toward the small space after ordering the elders of the Chu family to seal off the Chu family's territory. No one was allowed to enter or leave. Yuner, where are you? Chu Tianming was extremely anxious. Chu Yun had been refining pills inside that house just now. He brought a few elders and rushed into the rubble. A black hole appeared. A faint light appeared. As soon as he entered, he felt that something was wrong. This seemed to be an ancient site. Looking over, the first thing he saw was a stone tablet. There were lines of words engraved on the stone tablet. Chu Tianming first looked for Chu Yun. Suddenly, a ray of light attracted everyone's attention. In the center of the ancient site, there was a small blade that was floating in midair while emitting spiritual light. A vast pressure swept over the people there. Chu Tianming and the others' faces changed drastically, after which they became ecstatic. Emperor-level weapon. It was actually an Emperor-level weapon. However, this Emperor-level weapon was currently floating above Chu Yun's head. Chu Tianming and the others immediately became nervous. The Emperor-level weapon slowly descended and actually fell into Chu Yun's hands. In the end, it even merged into Chu Yun's body. The Emperor-level weapon acknowledged her as its master. Furthermore, it voluntarily did so. This Emperor-level weapon chose Chu Yun as its master. Chu Tianming and the others were all stunned. Look, what are those? One of the elders pointed at the balls of power floating in the air. There was also a scroll placed on an altar. Seeing that Chu Yun was fine, Chu Tianming turned his attention to the stone tablet. Looking at it, he was so excited that he started to tremble. This is the inheritance left behind by our ancestors. Everyone in the Chu family was ecstatic. They looked at Chu Yun as if they were looking at a treasure. The emperor-level weapon left behind by the Chu family's ancestors had taken the initiative to recognize Chu Yun as its master. Naturally, they knew what this meant. The rise of the Chu family depended entirely on Chu Yun. Chu Yun still had a blank expression on her face. She did not know how or why she suddenly appeared here. Moreover, a small blade had even recognized her as its master. It had been incorporated into her dantian and was being nurtured. Grandfather, what is this place? Yuner, this is the foundation left behind by our Chu family ancestors. How did you come here? Chu Tianming asked excitedly. I seem to have heard a voice. It felt like someone was calling me, so I answered and came here, Chu Yun said blankly. Good, good, there is hope for the rise of our Chu family. Chu Tianming was overjoyed. As expected, Chu Yun was the inheritor of the Chu family and the descendant chosen by the ancestors of the Chu family. This is the inheritance of the Truth Realm. An elder from the Chu family who had returned from the Great Qian dynasty said excitedly as he looked at the inheritance. The Chu family is going to rise. Everyone knew why the Zhao and He families had cultivated Truth Realm experts so quickly. It was because their family's foundations had been activated. Third uncle, break through to the Truth Realm as soon as possible. Chu Tianming looked at the clan elder. This clan elder was currently the strongest person in the Chu family. The situation in the southern region had turned unstable, and the Qin kingdom had become the Great Qin dynasty. The relationship between the Chu family and the other three families was also different from before. A Truth Realm expert had to appear as soon as possible and take charge of the Chu family. Only a Truth Realm expert had the strength to lead the family through these troubled times. Good. With this inheritance, we will definitely be able to break through within half a month. At the same time, the elders of the Chu family tacitly chose not to mention the emperor-level weapon. The emperor-level weapon was in Chu Yun's possession. This would be a top secret of the Chu family. Once it was leaked, the consequences would be unimaginable. Ignoring Chu Yun's limited strength, even the entire Chu family would not be able to protect it if it were discovered. It was an emperor-level weapon. How many powers in the entire southern region had an emperor-level weapon? They knew that the Qin family had an emperor-level weapon. Qin Qian, the great empress, was extremely powerful. Who would dare to have designs on her or her weapon? If things were the same on the Zhao and He family's side, they would also have an emperor-level weapon. However, they did not know if those weapons were in the hands of the two families or whether they had been given to the Qin family. The matter of the Chu family possessing an emperor-level weapon could not be leaked out. Luckily, the ones who entered this space were the family elders, so they could keep this matter a secret. In addition, the emperor-level weapon had taken the initiative to recognize its owner and had entered Chu Yun's dantian. As long as Chu Yun did not take the initiative to reveal it, no one would be able to discover it. Chu Tianming instructed Chu Yun not to ever reveal the emperor-level weapon. Grandfather, I know. Furthermore, with my strength, I can't use it anyway. Chu Yun nodded solemnly. She understood the importance of the emperor-level weapon and had already made up her mind to hand it over to Chu Zan. I can't let grandfather and the others know that I'll be giving the emperor-level weapon to 13th brother. Chu Yun thought silently. The Chu family's foundation had been opened and the entire clan land had been sealed. The three Unity Realm experts of the Chu family had started to inherit the power of the True Realm. At the moment, only 3 of them had enough cultivation to inherit the power of the True Realm. Chu Tianming and the other elders of the Chu family who had just broken through weren't strong enough to withstand it. It was easy for their power to become chaotic and their foundation to be damaged. Chapter 80, Coercion. Once one's foundation was damaged, even if one broke through to the Truth Realm, there would be no way forward. The Chu family's complete inherited cultivation technique had finally appeared. It was a powerful cultivation technique that would allow one to cultivate to the Emperor Realm or even the Supreme Realm. Which cultivator did not have the ambition or dream of reaching the Emperor Realm? It was not easy to break through to the Emperor Realm though, talent and aptitude were very important. However, if one did not work hard, who knew what one could or could not achieve? Moreover, with Chu Yun's aid with refining pills, there was still hope for them even if their innate talent was insufficient. As the Chu family's foundation had finally been discovered, the Chu family members regained hope. They now believed that they could catch up to the other three families. As a result, the Chu family members all fell into a frenzied period of cultivation. Even the voices that scolded Chu Yuan became softer. Chu Tianming could no longer be heard roaring in the ancestral residence because of Chu Yuan's matter. 2 days after Chu Yun left the Chu family's ancient site, she came over to Chu Zan's small courtyard. 13th brother, I inherited the Chu family's emperor-level weapon, she said in a mysterious and low voice. Your luck is indeed good. You're the person who carries the hope of the Chu family on your shoulders now. Chu Zan laughed. 13th brother, I want to give you this emperor-level weapon. I don't have any use for it and I feel that it's very dangerous for me to hold onto it. Chu Yun's face was solemn as she spoke. If others found out about the emperor-level weapon, her life would be in danger. Chu Zan laughed as he looked at her. The reason why Chu Yun spoke so seriously was because she was worried that he would not accept the emperor-level weapon. 13th brother, you must help me. I'll leave the emperor-level weapon with you. You can't tell anyone, Chu Yun said. All right, Chu Zan nodded. Chu Yun was elated. As expected, 13th brother was afraid that she would be in danger and chose to accept the emperor-level weapon. She immediately tried to take out the emperor-level weapon. However, the emperor-level weapon in her dantian refused to budge. She tried several methods but, in the end, she was unable to take it out. Her expression instantly took a turn for the worse. 13th brother, I can't take out the emperor-level weapon. This means that the emperor-level weapon has completely recognized you as its master. During critical moments, it will still protect you, so just keep it. Chu Zan patted her little head and smiled. The emperor-level weapon was also imbued with Chu Zan's power. Not only could it help Chu Yun in her cultivation, it would also save her life during critical moments. Given Chu Zan's first-level Supreme Realm cultivation, no one Emperor Realm cultivator could harm Chu Yun. In addition, Chu Zan had left a soul-chasing seal on the Emperor-level weapon. With this, he would be able to use the soul-chasing bow to kill any enemies close to Chu Yun. Alright, since Chu Yun failed to take out the Emperor-level weapon, she returned to the ancestral residence with a disappointed expression. After returning to the ancestral residence, she tried her best to rack her brain for a solution. However, despite her best efforts, she was still unable to take out the emperor-level weapon. As such, she had no choice but to give up. Just as the Chu family was about to focus on their cultivation and growth, a piece of news suddenly arrived which caused the family elders to be shaken. The sect master of Nine Swords Mountain, Song Yiming, had brought his son, Song Pang, to the Chu family to propose marriage. His son, Song Pang, wanted to marry Chu Yun. Not only that, he had come in threatening fashion. He did not use friendly methods to propose this marriage, he was directly threatening the Chu family into agreeing to the marriage. Had this occurred before the Chu family's foundation was unearthed, the family elders might have considered whether or not to curry favor with Nine Swords Mountain. However, after the Chu family's foundation was unearthed, the emperor-level weapon had recognized Chu Yun as its master. How could they allow Chu Yun to marry the son of the sect master of Nine Swords Mountain? Furthermore, the other party came menacingly and directly threatened them. The Chu family was unable to accept the other party's behavior. Chu Yun was the hope for the rise of the Chu family. Given the current situation, even if Chu Yun had someone in her heart, the family elders would not agree to her marrying out. Her future partner could only marry into the Chu family. What should we do? The elders looked at Chu Tianming with serious expressions. We can only ask the Qin family for help, Chu Tianming said with a gloomy face. The elders were worried. Would the Qin family come to their aid? One had to know that the current relationship between the great Qin dynasty and Nine Swords Mountain was not normal. Would they offend the sect master of Nine Swords Mountain for the sake of the Chu family? However, at this point, there was no other way out but to ask the Qin family for help. Chu Yun was concocting pills inside the Chu family's ancient site, so she was unaware of what was going on outside. Chu Zan had already learned from the intelligence reports of the Black Moon Tower that Song Yiming had brought his son to the Chu family's territory. The other party had neither been hurried nor slow. By traveling openly like that, they had exerted pressure on the Chu family. The accompanying Nine Swords Mountain disciples were currently taking control of one city after another in Chu County. Although they did not make any moves to hurt anyone, their intention was self-evident. They're finally here. With a single thought, Chu Zan covered the entirety of the Chu family's territory within his domain. He wanted to place a few more chess pieces in the southern region. He was very interested in the Asura Ancient Land. The opening of the Asura Ancient Land was related to the situation in the entire northern zone. Many powerful factions would participate in this matter. There might even be other factions from other zones interfering. It would be more exciting to stir up trouble on a field where many powerful factions were present. Moreover, his actions could trigger the system's rewards. Nine-Sword Mountain's Sect Master was one of the chess pieces that Chu Zan wanted to obtain due to the matter regarding the Great Qin's emperor. Inside the Great Qin dynasty's imperial palace, Qin Qian looked at the Chu family's request for help and did not give an answer. Qin Pingshan opened his mouth a few times, but soon closed it again each time. He could not guess what Qin Qian was thinking. Whether or not the Qin family helped the Chu family was all down to Qin Qian's decision. No one could control her. I have my own thoughts regarding this matter. Qin Qian waved her hand, indicating for Qin Pingshan to leave. Qin Pingshan sighed. The emperor-level aura around Qin Qian's body was getting stronger and stronger. She was probably going to break through to the emperor realm soon. After Qin Pingshan left, Qin Qian spoke to someone hiding behind a screen in the room, informed Nine Swords Mountain. If Song Yiming dies, just replace the sect master and pretend that nothing happened. The person behind the screen was stunned. If Song Yiming died, should he not take revenge? How could he pretend that nothing happened? Moreover, did the Chu family even have the ability to kill Song Yiming? After a long while, he replied, yes. Chu County. Song Pang said impatiently, Father, let's go straight to the Chu family's ancestral residence. What if someone eats the black heart grass while we're dawdling here? Song Yiming replied, Panger, are you sure that girl is an alchemist? I'm sure, I'm absolutely sure. Furthermore, her talent in alchemy should be quite good. Song Pang hurriedly nodded and said. Although his talent was lacking, he was not a brainless descendant. In order to stabilize his position in Nine Swords Mountain, he had thought of many methods and made every effort to improve. He wanted to obtain the position of sect master, rather than the safe position of an elder. To achieve that, he had been working hard. Song Pang knew that he was somewhat crippled in terms of cultivation. If he wanted to secure his position, his first choice would be to marry an excellent Dao partner. What did Nine Swords Mountain lack the most? Alchemists. Due to this, he had traveled to Heavenly Cauldron Mountain more than once, hoping to hook up with a female disciple. However, his hopes were dashed the time. The female disciples of Heavenly Cauldron Mountain all looked at him as if he were a cripple. No matter how much he tried to sweet-talk them, he could not coax them into becoming his Dao partner. It was precisely because he spent too much time with the disciples of Heavenly Cauldron Mountain that, when he chanced upon Chu Yun, he sensed a familiar faint pill fragrance lingering around her body. He also found out that Chu Yun had once purchased spirit herbs, which further confirmed his guess that she was an alchemist. Therefore, the first thing he wanted to do was to marry Chu Yun. Since he could not marry a disciple of Heavenly Cauldron Mountain, he would take the easier route of marrying a daughter of the Chu family. With the black heart grass and the beauty in his hands, his father's position as the sect master of Nine Swords Mountain would only become more and more stable in the future. Later on, he would be able to vie for the position of sect master. In the end, his father actually took his time traveling to the Chu family's ancestral residence, which worried him to no end. Even if he married Chu Yun in the end, without the black heart grass, he would not be able to fix his limited talent and aptitude, and thus would not be able to vie for the position of sect master.